Is it us or them, right? Right? Okay.
Mayor? Mayor?
Behind the time?
Well, if you're going to spill it,
Mayor?
then just spill it all over the place. And
Mayor?
maybe we'll have to call the meeting short and early. Yeah, just wet everything. That's right. Yeah. See sparks fly and yeah.
We left. Good evening, everyone. Hello? Can they hear me?
Gavel.
Yeah.
Okay.
Gavel.
Good evening. There's some chairs up front here. If people can't find seats in the back, there's a few chairs up front. Hope everyone enjoyed Super Bowl weekend, no matter which team you rooted for. And I call this meeting to order. Carla, will you please read the roll call?
Commissioner Bessler?
Here.
Mayor Cos?
Here.
Commissioner DeHassett?
Present.
Commissioner Herbert?
Here.
Vice Mayor Magruder?
Here.
Stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, are there any additions, deletions, or modifications to the agenda?
Yes, Mayor, I'd like to pull item number 4 from the agenda. Staff has more review to do on that ordinance, and we will bring it back to you when it's completed.
Okay. Does that change the order, or are we okay?
No.
Okay. And entertain a motion on the approval of the agenda with item number 4 stricken.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. Presentations, we don't have any, and Carla's announcements.
FEMA will hold a public open house regarding the potential changes to the flood maps. The open house will be held at the Mary V. McDonald Wilson Center located at 1505 North Australian Ave in West Palm Beach on February 4th from 4 to 7 p.m. and on February 5th from 9 a.m. to noon. The next Planning and Zoning Commission meeting on February 10th has been canceled. The next Septic to Sewer Citizens Advisory Committee meeting will be held on February 13th at 8:30 a.m. at Town Hall. A joint workshop between the Town Commission and the Planning and Zoning Commission will be held on February 24th at 4:30. The next regular Town Commission meeting will be held on March 2nd at 6 p.m. at Town Hall. Town Hall will be closed on February 17th in observance of President's Day. There will be no municipal election in March as only 2 candidates qualified to fill the Town Commission seats. The candidates that qualified are Susan Herbert and Martin Weichelek. The 2 candidates will be sworn into office on March 18th, 2020. The presidential preference primary election will still be held at Town Hall on March 17th, 2020. Polls are open from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. There will be a meet and greet with the incoming Town Commissioner Martin Weichelek at Town Hall on Wednesday, March 4th, beginning at 6 p.m. Please join us for light refreshments and conversation. Census Day is April 1st, 2020. Please be aware that an important census information will be delivered via mail with instructions on how to complete the census information, whether it be online, over the phone, or through the mail. The Town Commission will consider appointments of the following board positions at the April 6, 2020 Town Commission meeting. Board of Adjustments, 2 regular members for a 3-year term, 1 regular member for a 2-year term, and 2 alternates for a 2-year term. And Planning and Zoning Commission, 3 regular members for a 3-year term. Interested residents must be registered to vote in Ocean Ridge and submit resume and letter of interest to the town clerk by deadline of March 20, 2020. Incumbents are exempted from the resume and letter of interest requirement. The Building Department is seeking 3 volunteers to form a program for a public information committee. The objective of this committee is to provide the public with information needed to increase flood hazard awareness and to motivate actions to reduce flood damage, encourage flood insurance coverage, and to protect the natural functions of the floodplains. If you are interested in becoming a committee member, please email a letter of interest and resume to the building clerk by February 7, 2020, or visit the town website for more information. Residents who wish to sign up to receive important town notifications and news through Civic Ready should sign up on the town's website or call Town Hall for assistance. Next on the agenda is public comment. The mayor will invite the public to speak to the commission on any item that is not printed on the agenda. Public comments on a specific agenda item may be made later in the meeting when the items are taken up. There's a 3-minute individual limit for public comments that will be timed by the town clerk. Public comments is not meant to be question and answer period, and there will be no dialogue. Anyone wishing to speak during public comment will approach the podium and state their name and address for the record, and see the town clerk after speaking to fill out a comment card in order for the minutes to be properly recorded. Thank you.
Okay, so I'll now open it to public comment. I just want to repeat what Carla said. If you're here for the artificial turf ordinance, which it looks like, I would guess you are, don't come up now. Wait until we hit that in 2 items from now. Mary Ann.
Thank you. Members of the commission, my name is Mary Ann Cody. I reside at 5801 North Ocean Boulevard here in Ocean Ridge. I currently serve as president of the Ocean Ridge Garden Club, and I'm here, first of all, to thank you for allowing us to host our 2nd gala at this beautiful town hall facility. And I'm here to invite the members of our town and the people in attendance here tonight to purchase a ticket to come to our tropical gala, which will be held on Saturday, February 29th, Sadie Hawkins Day to some of us, between the hours of 7 and 9:30 p.m. We'll have catering by White Apron out of Palm Beach. It will be an open bar with wine and liquor and all types of drinks. There'll be entertainments and a special guest. The proceeds of the event, and this is our only annual fundraiser, are used to support the activities of the Ocean Ridge Garden Club. We provide scholarships for students studying horticulture. We do beautification projects around the town. And we, this year, are doing our first public meeting regarding saving the seas, plastic-free, which we'll be speaking about later this evening. So it's a great cause. The tickets normally are priced at $125 a ticket, but tonight only, I'm offering them for $110. So I would encourage you to get your tickets. We're having it here at the wonderful town hall, and you won't recognize it by the time Mrs. Val Kaz is done with this place. It will look like paradise. So I want to thank you all. We're selling tickets out front, and we have a flyer to remind you. If you have any time constraints and can't buy it tonight, you can get it another time. And thank you for this opportunity to address the commission. I appreciate your time.
And just to follow up with you, they did a beautification project down at the south end of Old Ocean that everyone should check out. Dramatic difference. And I don't know how many people went to last year's gala. It was an absolute blast. You know, literally you wouldn't recognize this room. It was transformed, and it was just a wonderful time had by all.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate that. Okay, that's it. Thank you.
You have to, Terry.
I was hoping you weren't going to cut down totally public comments, but I only wanted to ask, on item number 6, the town manager's evaluation, I know you don't want open mic to go on all night because you have a lot of activity apparently, but would the residents be able to come up and speak on that item?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Any other public comment? Okay, Carla? Approval of consent agenda?
Adopt minutes of regular town commission meeting of January 6, 2020. Approve the agreement for storm drain maintenance and repair with Televac and authorize town manager Stevens to sign said agreement. Approve the budgeted expense of $14,000 to Beacon Software Solutions for the annual maintenance and support and software products for the police department CAD system. Appointment of outside counsel regarding building permit issue related to canals.
Do I hear a motion to accept?
I'll make the motion to accept the consent agenda.
I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, we're on to regular agenda items. Mickey Farley.
Right. So I have to say my name and my address, right? Mickey Farley Austin. I live at 5700 North Ocean Boulevard. Been in the town almost 2 years and I love it. Yeah, but I'm here tonight. First of all, thank you for the opportunity to address you. I'm here tonight on behalf of the Ocean Ridge Garden Club. Yeah, and I will be brief. Yeah, I understand that there's a big event tonight, so I'm going to stay to 5 minutes. First of all, as I said, I represent the Ocean Ridge Garden Club. A lot of our members are here today. We're requesting that the town partner with us on this event. You can see it up on the board for you in the audience. On Saturday, March 21st, from 10 to 3, we're going to have what we're calling an awareness day about the issue of plastics in the ocean. We know that plastic pollution of our ocean is a global issue, and we see it on our beach every day. The Garden Club has a mission statement that says, "The ocean is our garden." So this is a natural fit for us. Our objective is to create awareness of the issue, in case people don't know, although most people will know. It's also to educate. We want them to understand the scope of the issue. We want them to understand how they personally are responsible and how they personally can change, reduce, reuse, recycle, etc. So the day should be engaging, informative, and fun. If we can change, our belief is if we can change just one person's behavior, that's one less plastic bottle. We've recruited some really wonderful partners. Thank you for switching that to the next one. We've recruited some, I think, pretty amazing partners who are going to help us throughout the day. First of all, just imagine the day, and then I will show you what each of the partners is going to do. We have about 9 or 10 booths. I'll call them booths. It's a table with an umbrella or a canopy set up around around a couple of in here, on the lawn, and a little bit outside. We've got a recycling area out here. Waste Pro and SWA are going to, Solid Waste Authority, are going to bring in recycling bins. In the morning, we have schools coming. They have done pre-work, and the kids have actually collected plastics from the beach, from parks. They've washed them, they're bringing them, they're going to dump them out there. We're going to sort them. We're going to give awards to them. Then they're going to come in and listen to a few presentations, and there's also an art table outside. At the same time, we've got 10 booths set up. So their moms and dads are going to be wandering around. They're going to be wandering around and learning. In the afternoon, we have another presentation from the Institute for IRC, Institute for
Regional Conservation.
Thank you very much. Regional Conservation. George is going to present. We're going to invite sister garden clubs. So we'll have a whole group of people attracted for the afternoon. Again, we just want them to get here and walk around those booths and learn. Inform, educate, hopefully change behavior. Surfrider Foundation is one of our core partners. Tom Warnke's here representing them. They're going to conduct a beach cleanup in the morning. We have not decided where. We need to work with you to figure out what the best location is. That beach cleanup will also bring some recyclable plastics here that we can sort. I think that if you haven't gone on a beach cleanup, but you're here to go to the booth and you look at the plastics laying there and you see where they go. Okay, the Waste Pro team will be here, the SWA team will be here to help with the recycling. We have in the middle of the visual there's a fellow named Brian Gamble who did, I don't know if you've heard of this, it was on the cover of the Coastal Star. He walked the coast of Florida with a partner, 3 months. He walked the entire coast of Florida and collected plastics, and then he got approval to dump it on the steps of the state capitol. His whole objective, this young man, he's in his early 20s, this young man cared enough about it to use his all of his savings, get a GoFundMe project, just so that he could create awareness. He's on our committee. He's amazing. He's a really cool, super dude. He's going to be involved with the school program. He'll be here presenting. I recommend all of you go to that presentation. Gumbo Limbo will have a booth. Our very own Sea Turtle Adventures, who are responsible for our turtle nests, will have a booth. Sandaway Discovery Center will also have a booth. The Palm Beach County Environmental Resources Management will be here with materials. And we have our Nomads folks involved. So the Nomads food truck will be here all day at no charge. All these people have donated their time because they care about this issue. So we're thrilled to have them. The really fun thing from the Surfing Museum of Florida, see that tube there? 18-foot tall. It's all recycled bottles. And we can have people go in there and take photos in the booth. So we'd like a banner outside too. So the event should be noticeable as people drive by. So, I mentioned the structure of the day. We would like you to partner with us, as we have before, whether it's during the Memorial Day, Veterans Day, the holiday. We'd like you to partner with us on logistics and publicity. I think that you saw in the handout, you can go to the last page. Yeah, you've all read this, but if you have questions, please let me know. We'd like you to partner with the logistics and the marketing, and then specifically, we need your approval for the truck, for our food truck, for the Nomad food truck, and then secondly, we'd like to hang a banner outside the week or so before, yeah, so that people driving down A1A will know about it, because wouldn't it be great if we could have just people, if we had room in the parking lot over there, to stop, come in, wander around, and learn. I think it benefits the Ocean Ridge Garden Club because it fits with our mission and it's our community engagement. I think it fits with Ocean Ridge because you're a little town right on the beach, and it only enhances your image. Yeah, so with that, do you have any questions?
Nikki, can you talk about the placement of the banner? Where you think you might?
Actually, I would like to work with you on that.
Okay.
Yeah, on the size and on the placement. Of
Okay.
course, I want it across the street. I want it on, you know, I want it this big, but you know, you're probably not gonna let me have that, so. So big, so, but we'll work with you on that, so. Any
I
questions?
just had one question, it's more for the chief. It's the police are mentioned in here, that's all fine with you.
We will do whatever we can to make this work.
Thank you, Chief. So, you're gonna vote on it, you're gonna join us? Hopefully? Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Mayor, can we get some sort of consensus to move forward or a
Support
motion in
and
a second?
partner?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
sure. We got any objections to?
All for it. Yeah.
We have consensus. All right, Carla?
Okay.
Thank you, guys.
I like how you asked for the order.
Well done.
Okay, item number 3, second reading and adoption of ordinance number 2019-15. Carl, please read the ordinance by title into the record.
Ordinance 2019-15, an ordinance of the Town of Ocean Ridge, Florida, amending its Code of Ordinances by amending Chapter 1, General Provisions, Section 1-3, Definitions, amending Chapter 66, Environmental Regulations, Article 4, Landscaping, Division 2, Water Efficient Landscape, Section 66-141, Water Efficient Landscape Code, enacting Section 66-142, Artificial Turf/Synthetic Grass, to provide for regulation regarding artificial turf/synthetic grass, providing for codification, repeal of conflicting ordinances, severability, and an effective date.
Okay, I'd like to introduce our town planner, Corey O'Gorman. He's over here, who has a few words to say about this.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioners. Corey O'Gorman, Town Planner. The item before you is the second reading of Ordinance 2019-15, which proposes amendments to several sections of the Town Code to make provision for the use of artificial turf and synthetic grass, including adding artificial turf and synthetic grass to the definition of landscaping and providing specific details regarding minimum material standards, installation methods, and areas where artificial turf is permissible. At their meeting on May 13th, 2019, the Planning and Zoning Commission discussed that although there are several homes in the town of Ocean Ridge that have installed artificial turf, and there are nearby communities which regulate artificial turf, that the town doesn't currently regulate its use, and it's allowed without any limitation and without any permitting. Over the next several months, the Planning and Zoning Commission and town staff discussed the use of artificial turf in the town of Ocean Ridge, reviewed ordinances from other communities, and reviewed proposed draft language in the town code to address the use of artificial turf. Issues considered in preparing the ordinance include the use of artificial turf as a means of water conservation, enabling the use of artificial turf in areas where it's difficult to grow or maintain grass, such as areas with steep slopes and small areas between pavers, as well as issues with artificial grass such as ensuring the use of a high-quality product and quality installation, and ensuring proper maintenance if it becomes faded, torn, or in disrepair. Consideration was also made regarding how artificial turf impacts pervious and impervious calculations and limiting its use to the side and rear yards where it's not visible. And as previously mentioned, although it's not currently regulated in the town code, there are homes which utilize artificial turf, and it is becoming a more popular landscape treatment. This item, as you know, was also considered at previous town commission meetings for discussion and at first reading at the January 6, 2020 meeting. The current proposed language incorporates those discussion items and issues, is offered for your comments, discussion, and action. And at this time, I'd like to turn it over to the town attorney to provide some additional details.
I really don't have anything to add other than what Corey has said, that this item was, I think originally, we were directed by P&Z, by the Planning and Zoning Commission, to draft an ordinance on this, and it's taken quite a bit of time to get to this point, and it's before you for second reading.
So it was brought to you by P&Z, not by town officials?
Well, I mean, town staff did not initiate this. We have in the past, there's been numerous ordinances that town staff has initiated because we felt, no, these are changes that need to be made. That this was not one of them.
But the town commission gave consensus for this to go to P&Z.
That's right, to proceed forward, yes. It just wasn't initiated by town staff to come forward with that.
Gotcha. Okay, public comment? Peter?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners. My name is Peter Burling. With my wife Jean, I reside at 7 Osprey Drive. I rise before you this evening to oppose, in the strongest possible term, passage of 2019-15 before you on second reading. The ordinance before you is objectionable for many reasons, the most important of which is simply this. It unreasonably restricts the right of homeowners to maintain their properties in the way most pleasing and environmentally responsible to their judgment. It's an imposition on individual rights that the people of this town value, at least to the extent that I've been able to discern. The ordinance acts in fact.
Can we be quiet, please?
The ordinance acts in fact like an exercise of eminent domain, a taking from homeowners of the right to control 85% of their own property and transferring that control to the town government, all without compensation of any kind. And let me say that the calculation of how much specific property may be affected is almost incomprehensible in the ordinance. And I spent 20 years as a municipal attorney and a legislator trying to figure out how to write these things. All we know is that it substitutes the rule of the town P&Z for the private judgment of capable landowners who care about the look and value of their own property. The ordinance completely restricts and governs the use of synthetic lawn materials. If passed, it will eventually require elimination of all existing synthetics at the homeowner's expense over the course of the next decade. If passed, it will completely ban the use of what I call anhydrous turf at exactly the moment when environmental concerns that confront all of us may require increased use of such products. Homeowners who are concerned about reducing water use or chemical fertilizer use or noise and air pollution will be denied the right to use waterless turf to achieve either synthetic or environmental ends that they value. And why? To what end? The reasons for the adoption of this ordinance, as I think I said last month, are not clear to me, particularly given the fact that this is a town that values the private property rights of the people who live here. Passage will not only devalue those rights, it will leave residents wondering, I put quotation marks around this, what comes next? What's the rest of the camel coming under the tent flap? What is the next restriction or group of restrictions to be imposed by ordinance, frankly, without a whole lot of public discussion as we're having here tonight? As I said at the start, I oppose passage of this ordinance. Let me close my comments by saying that if passed, it will draw this town into litigation, a lot of it, and it will require incredible effort and expenditure to administer. Think for a moment about the property completely screened from public view. We talked about this a month ago. Is some town officer going to carry a ladder up to a hedge someplace and peer over to find out if an excessive portion of the backyard has been landscaped with synthetic product? I ask you please to think about that and then vote no on passage. And I would like to just say, I came here equipped with a petition signed by many of my neighbors in the Ocean, my portion of Ocean Ridge, our portion of Ocean Ridge. There are 16 names on this petition, and I will hand this over to the town clerk for the record. Thank you, commissioners. I appreciate you listening.
Thank you, Peter. Jean?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. I'm Jean Burling. I reside at 7 Osprey Drive with my husband, Peter. I rise to speak in opposition to this, to the Ocean Ridge Ordinance 2019-15. The public purpose supporting the adoption of this ordinance is at best aesthetic, but that aesthetic purpose is in direct conflict with state policies in favor of preserving the environment. As an aesthetic policy, this ordinance goes well beyond the town's authority to adopt regulations which promote health, safety, and welfare. Specifically, adoption of this ordinance conflicts with Florida Statute, Chapter 373, Section 185, entitled Local Florida Friendly Landscaping. Florida-friendly landscaping means quality landscapes that conserve water, protect the environment, are adaptable to local conditions, and are drought tolerant. I draw your attention specifically to paragraph 3 in this statute, which states, "The legislature finds that the use of Florida-friendly landscaping and other water use and pollution prevention measures to conserve or protect the state's water resources serves a compelling public interest, and that the participation of homeowner associations and local governments is essential to the state's efforts in water conservation and water quality protection and restoration." You will hear from public members whose experience and expertise identify artificial turf as an exemplar of this state policy. Further, paragraph C goes on to say, "A local government ordinance may not prohibit or be enforced so as to prohibit any property owner from implementing Florida-friendly landscaping on his or her land." Adoption of this ordinance is in conflict with the established state policy of protection of water quality and conservation. Artificial turf does not require water. It is pervious for water drainage. Using artificial turf means no more pesticides and fertilizers, which contribute to the degradation of water quality in the aquifer, as well as the beach ecosystem. No need for cutting or trimming with noisy air-polluting mowers. Landowners have the right to pursue environmentally positive actions on their own property, which this ordinance will prohibit. Is the town of Ocean Ridge prepared financially to undertake legal defense of an aesthetic ordinance which is in direct conflict with the state's policies? Is the town of Ocean Ridge prepared financially to defend an aesthetic ordinance which is arbitrary and unenforceable, defense of an aesthetic ordinance which is in conflict with landowners' property rights, defense of an aesthetic ordinance which neither promotes health, nor safety, nor welfare of the town. Frankly, I say no. I urge you to vote this ordinance down. Thank you very much.
Can we get the copy of the state statute, Ms. Carla? Well,
I wrote the number down.
got it. Janet.
Janet Shines. I reside with my husband Roy at 111 Dolphin Bend. Mayor, commissioners, thank you for your time this evening. Natural lawns come at a cost to the environment. Yes, natural lawns. They account for 1/3 of all residential water use, and they pose an environmental disaster with regards to conserving water. Our efforts to maintain our lawns create air pollution that far outstrips the oxygen-producing benefit of that grass. And the fertilizers we use on our natural lawns pollute the groundwater and kill wildlife. So tonight, let's look at the facts. Artificial turf is good for the environment, period. Artificial turf saves water. Most families use 320 gallons of water a day. If 30% of that, and that's what the statutes say, is used to water the lawn, that's about 30,000 gallons that can be saved with artificial turf. Do the math. Better yet, walk around town. Watch all the sprinklers that are actually sprinkling the macadam, the pavement, instead of water. Is that a good idea? We're wasting water instead of installing artificial lawns and saving 30,000 gallons per house? The water savings alone should convince the commissioners no vote matters on this ordinance. But how about protecting our soil, our water supply from chemicals? This is another win for the turf. Natural lawns, 60% of fertilizers and other lawn chemicals that we use are wasted and contribute to chemical runoff. Many of these chemicals, highly toxic, killing and infecting animals and insects, and they have the potential to decimate the local ecosystem. They're also very dangerous to us as humans, particularly when they result in residents consuming contaminated water, and they create the dreaded red tide. Artificial turf doesn't need pesticides or any other chemicals to maintain its appearance. In 2018 alone, artificial turf installations in the U.S. prevented the use of 8 billion gallons of pesticides and fertilizer. In fact, our own town code, section 66-165, recognizes the risk of chemical contamination to our water, stating that fertilizer shall not be applied within 10 feet of any pond, stream, watercourse, lake, canal, or wetland, as defined by the Florida EPA. Protecting our water supply and helping us prevent the spread of the red tide caused by these chemicals seems like a pretty good reason to me to use artificial turf, and another reason for you to say no to the ordinance in front of you. Let's not forget CO2 emissions. According to the EPA, and this one shocked even me, gas-powered gardening equipment makes up 5% of the USA's carbon emissions, meaning artificial grass could make a significant impact on reducing air pollution. 1 hour of a riding mower is equivalent to 34 cars driving around with gas-powered engines for an hour. Imagine what we could save in CO2 emissions if even a portion of our residents installed artificial turf. Another reason to say no to the ordinance. And finally, noise pollution. The sounds emitted from gas mowers and blowers account for half the noise pollution in most towns. In artificial turf installations, you create a safer and quieter environment for everybody. Again, another good reason to say no. So to summarize, artificial turf is good for the environment, something we as citizens care greatly about. And in fact, the issues surrounding the environmental impact of real turf have caused many municipalities to restrict the size of real lawns in new projects. In Mill Valley, California, regulations allow only 500 square feet of real grass for a new home or a major remodel. And yet, in Ocean Ridge, we're doing just the opposite, despite a state ordinance saying we shouldn't. We're choosing aesthetic misconceptions about the appearance of artificial turf to cloud our judgment and negatively impact our environment. On behalf of our town, I beseech all of you to vote no on this ordinance tonight. Protect our environment and protect our property rights. And residents of this town, if you're not speaking up, and I understand that, please show the commissioners that you support us by raising your green card. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioner. Arthur Ziv. Mary and I reside at 9 Osprey Drive. I find it hugely ironic that synthetic turf, which uses zero water, is being banned through amending the ordinance titled Water Efficient Landscape. The proposed ordinance flies in the face of the intent of the ordinance. In fact, under the ordinance, it says, quote, best management practices means turf and landscaping, including technological considerations for improving water quality, conserving water supplies, and protecting natural resources, end quote. This is exactly what synthetic turf is and does. It's a technological advancement. It's the ultimate turf product to conserve water because it does not use any. It improves water quality and protects natural resources because no chemicals or fertilizers are required for maintenance. Clearly, the proposed ordinance conflicts with the existing city ordinance or town ordinance, and as mentioned previously, state laws and regulations. Now, I'd like to address what is really going on here. It is not a concern about synthetic turf. This is about a group who believe that they are the ones to determine and control the community character. Community character issue are the exact words they use, and by that they mean the exterior appearance of your property. I would like to ask, who decides our community character? A group sitting on high telling us what to be or what defines a coastal paradise? I don't think so. I believe that community character is established by the choices of individuals within the community. And what is our community character? My guess is that if you asked residents and non-residents, they'd say Ocean Ridge is a beachfront or coastal community. However, our beautiful town does not consist solely of houses that most would consider traditional beachfront or coastal architecture. We have ultra-modern contemporary homes. We have Greek Revival style homes with synthetic turf in the front. And we have multiple homes with synthetic turf fronting the street. That freedom of individual expression is what makes Ocean Ridge great. The Town Commission and Planning and Zoning Commission should not be telling us what our architectural style to use, what color to paint our houses, what height our windows should be, or that we cannot use synthetic turf, which a homeowner may find attractive and want to use for environmental qualities. We are individuals within a community. We are not a planned development or HOA. Thank you very much.
Come on. I had it. You can be the bad guy in there.
Oh, Ed Brooks, 15 East Ocean Avenue, Ocean Ridge. I wanted to go back to the garden club with the environmental. Maybe we can get off all this paper for these meetings, just FYI. These people are so well-spoken, I got afraid. I thought I'd better get up here because I was going to get yelled at. They're all totally 100% correct. Did a little research on it, and there was some complaints about toxicity of the artificial turf, and it's not really found in science. But what is true is all the pesticides that we're putting on the lawn. When I was walking here, I went past Betty's house, and I almost picked up a sign off her lawn, but I didn't want to walk on the lawn because it had a little kid and a dog on it with a big X through it. Instead, I wasn't allowed to touch it. So it's very, very toxic what we're doing. And I agree with the gentleman who said about the character of the town. I was at a meeting a couple years ago where we were talking about the Architectural Review Committee and talking about the color of the houses. And that's not why we moved here. And he's dead nuts on. The character is not an aesthetic, it's a lifestyle. And we're here living in this town because we didn't want to be in a town with HOAs. We didn't want to be in gated communities. We wanted to be able to do, within reason, what we want to do with our own private property. And I think that's vital important. In fact, I'd kind of flipped the switch a little bit. I didn't really look at our water bill, but the town is paying $100,000 a year to a landscaping company. I'd almost flip the switch and say, why aren't you trying to figure out where you can use artificial turf to save that bill and your water bill? Thank you.
I'm sorry. Let Mark go.
Hello, my name is Jackie Cowden. My husband and I, Chuck, live at 7 Beachway North, Ocean Ridge. Thank you, Mayor and members of the Commission. Thank you for allowing me to speak. I'm here tonight to give a citizen's view on the ordinance before you, restricting the use of artificial turf for Ocean Ridge homeowners. There seem to be two distinctive issues at stake, aesthetics and homeowners' rights, and I'm a proponent of both. From an aesthetic point of view, it is obviously much more preferable to have a natural, lush, green lawn, covering accented with floral and tropical plants. My lawn, however, resembles more of a patchwork quilt of salt-damaged grass, blight and fungus, brown patches frequently being replaced with new sod that adds to the patchwork appearance of my lawn. Different colorations, different heights, and the need for additional watering for the new sod is not environmentally a good choice, nor is the patchwork grass aesthetically pleasing. Now, my property stretches from Old A1A to Beachway North and includes both the east and west sides of the cul-de-sac. Beautiful landscaping is important to my husband and me. We maintain a green island in the center of our cul-de-sac at our expense with healthy palm trees, natural rocks, plants and flowers for walkers, neighbors, and even the ubiquitous commercial vehicle that circle daily to enjoy. While rules, regulations, ordinances and laws are necessary for the safety and well-being of our residents and our visitors, and they are usually well-meaningly implemented, the long-reaching effects are not always evident. On the surface and at a glance, hearing a debate of natural, lush green grass versus artificial turf seems a no-brainer. But as I've described, maintaining a natural, lush green lawn is not the outcome of spending many resources to obtain that. Financial resources, natural resources such as precious water, which we've discussed over and over. Landscapers with the noise and energy consumption, the evasive noises of their equipment to our senses can be to no avail aesthetically. Not to mention herbicides, fungicides, pesticides, and all the other toxins we're admitting into our soil, our air, and our water supplies. The rights of property owners are at stake as well. This is a democratic society, the best in the world. Democracy protects the rights of homeowners. If I choose to use artificial turf, that should be my choice to make. If my neighbor prefers to have a constantly green lawn using artificial turf, that should be her choice. There are obvious concerns about property owners not maintaining their homes or lawns. That is obnoxious to almost everyone. Having junk cars sit with flat tires on one front lawn is obnoxious to everyone. These are not the property owner's rights we're discussing. Those are situations no one wants to extend to the freedom that we want to do with our property. We're discussing property owners' rights to decide what is best for them without harming the aesthetics of the area. In fact, the artificial turf can enhance the aesthetics. I respectfully request that this ordinance be defeated. Thank you.
Mark?
Good evening, Mayor, Commission. Mark Marsh, 14 Hudson Avenue. I'm currently the vice chair of the Planning and Zoning Board. And I'm not prepared as some of these eloquent speakers ahead of me. We set out, as Corey had mentioned last May, to look at the growth and the occurrence of artificial turf within the town. And we recognized that there was no method by permitting allowing people to create a installation of artificial turf. So we asked Corey to go out and, as he reported earlier, to investigate what other communities, and we don't have to be like all other communities, but there is a constant balance, it seems, with all the coastal communities. And without fail, each one has an ordinance restricting artificial turf. And it's not based on overreach by municipalities. It affects a number of things. Everything that these people have said ahead of me are true, factually, but we have to look at the impacts. We have, what isn't realized here is you can't just, for lack of a term, roll out a lawn in front of your house. There's got to be, we have right-of-ways, which a town has. You have, we'll have artificial turf meeting real turf. None of those are even thought of yet. The other thing that was raised in a discussion earlier with the commission is we do have, because we're in a septic system, sewage system in this town, we are required to have a pervious element which artificial turf does not qualify. So for the state,
Let Bart finish and then
as far as I know, I can stand corrected, but as far as I know, the state health and Florida Health Commission and Board have recognized that they, I think, outlaw using artificial turf on top of septic and drain field areas. And that's a very important aspect of what we're discussing here, because everybody, or 70% of the town will have their septic systems and drain fields in the front of their house. So, this is not I think the disappointment here from me as a planning and zoning member is that this discussion should have taken place in front of the Planning and Zoning Board. We're here in a second reading to adopt an ordinance, and now we've got this, very concerned resident group that have come up, and I must say I object to that petition that was passed around town. This is not a voting body. This is, we're trying to work as a town. We want to react. We're not overreaching. We are open. We meet once a month, and I've yet to see any of you attend a planning and zoning meeting. Very few, maybe. I can't see everybody here. And this is not something that was snuck up. As we said, we've been discussing it for almost 8 months. It came up, and all this resentment or rejection of this ordinance is really a surprise. And I would like to suggest to the commission that at our upcoming workshop, we defer any vote or ruling tonight on the subject till we can put the commission and the planning and zoning and invite these concerned people, that we can all have a proper and a hopefully educational discussion as how to address the use of artificial turf. Again, it occurs in every town, coastal town that we have known, and Corey has confirmed this, even Lantana of all places. So it's not something we just pulled out of the air and want to take people's rights. We're not, property rights are controlled by the zoning ordinances, and they're there for a reason, and they usually are adopted for a reason. If you equate, having boats and trailers in your front yard, that is not allowed. So that could be termed,
But you just equated artificial turf to boats and trailers at front yards. That's,
No, I'm saying that property rights, you can't do that under the ordinance now. And I just think that I know I see the fury and of the residents, but I think we need to get into a more open discussion format. And I think the workshop is that setting, because this is an 11th hour, turnout, which I understand, and I hear, the objections, and I understand the technologies of it, but I think we need to just take this a little slower and see if we can come up to some agreement. I don't want to get into the aesthetic, because I guess, the Planning and Zoning Commission now seems to be the governors or the controllers of the aesthetics in the town. That's not what it was established for. We're just concerned that people are protecting the character of the community and that things are done to preserve the lifestyle that we know here. So things like artificial turf, that's quite a substantial impact if we're talking about full lawns. And again, I must remind everybody, we're not prohibiting the use of turf, artificial turf. It just seems like it's appropriate where you can't impose that material on the public. And there are ways to do that, screening with hedges, building walls. Is that the character we want in this town? I don't think so. So I would like to suggest that the commission this evening postpone this vote, if that's possible, and let's reconvene as a combined commission, town commission, and planning and zoning commission, and welcome these people to come and participate, and let's really, come up with a solution that works for the town. I think we're going at this thing in two different approaches. So with that, sit down.
Terry Brown, Harvard Drive South. I object to that suggestion. This is second reading. I know that Mark Marsh knows who I am, and I did go to some of the planning and zoning meetings. I was there. And these people worked really hard. All of you are appointed members of the planning and zoning. And there were objections to the artificial turf. Fake grass is what it is. And believe me, it's a distortion of so much that I heard tonight about the Florida-friendly yard. I happen to have a certified Florida-friendly yard, and I don't have artificial turf. It involves planting xeriscape landscape, which uses less water and fertilizer, which my yard does. There's plenty of options than going from artificial turf to natural grass and back. So that's a total distortion of that piece of legislation that they were referring to does not say to plant plastic grass. I mean, it's just outrageous. This is a reasonable regulation. Towns are permitted to have reasonable regulations. The attorney will tell you that unless you're preempted by the state, which is occurring more and more. But this regulation regarding aesthetics and what it looks like and what it feels like is something you need to remember what Ocean Ridge is like. Just imagine the whole town covered in artificial turf, every lawn that you go across. I mean, would you want to live here? Give me a break.
Thank you. Arthur Ziv. I just wanted to respond to some of the comments made by the chair of the Planning and Zoning Commission. First off, I just want to get this out of the way. I think it is totally inappropriate to deny the residents of the city to come forth and speak in a public forum at any time during the process, to require, somehow think that if we don't say it right up front, we lose our opportunity. But I do want to agree with him on one thing, okay? And that is that, I'm not a lawyer, but I think, as he stated, the current ordinances do not really address artificial turf in any way, and they probably should. And so here's what I suggest you do, is you don't table this or bring it back, because it's a mess, it's wrong, it's conflicting, and stated here, what I would like to suggest that you do is to vote it down and then go back and then start the process over again to then put forth and amend the ordinances to allow artificial turf, synthetic turf, and spell out, the normal requirements as you do with any other building or planning, and do it that way, taking into account the sentiment and the views and the things that we've said here before. There's one other thing I need to address that he commented about septic tanks. I've developed 20 properties in Las Vegas. You're not allowed to plant grass, by the way. In fact, they pay you to take up grass. To say that it would, I don't know about septic tanks, but I will tell you this. We did a project in Reno, Nevada, and we were required to have a snow evacuation area. Where do you put the snow if it piles up on your driveways? You know where we put it? You know where they wanted us to put it? On top of the synthetic turf that was the play field. So I've done lots of grading studies and analyses on 20 projects. They all have synthetic turf. They all are put in properly. They handle the water flow. It's beneficial. So again, my suggestion is to reject this ordinance and go back, do the process again, and now that you have a sense of what the community wants, and properly amend the code of ordinances to incorporate synthetic turf. Thank you very much.
The tall guy in the back. I'll get you next time. You've had your hand up for 20 minutes.
Hi there. My name is Tom Warnke. I live in Boynton Beach, and I'm proud that right across the street here was the first place I ever saw the ocean. That was 1956. I was about 8 years old. And Ocean Ridge is near and dear to my heart. I follow what happens here, even though I live over the bridge. And I'm happy to be part of the event coming up on March 21st with the Garden Club. I wasn't going to speak on this, but I have a long history of considering turf, sod, alternatives to what we have in most Florida yards, St. Augustine grass. It's an invasive species. It sucks water. Most people should get rid of their lawns and their sod. That's not going to happen. But you're charged with trying to decide and influence how Ocean Ridge is going to look in 10 years. And I know you don't want somebody to put in artificial turf in their whole yard. That would be just terrible. I don't know what the shelf life is of it. It says in the ordinance, I believe, maybe 10 years. But what happens to it after that? What about the microplastics that it sloughs off into our watershed that are microscopic, that the larval fish eat? Plastic is not part of Surfrider Foundation's Ocean Friendly Gardens program, which we started many years ago. And so regulating it, I think, would be a good thing. How that comes about is up to you. But there's something else that you can envision for Ocean Ridge that won't include plastic or St. Augustine lawns, and that's paspalum turf. It's a Florida native. It's at the Par 3 golf course in Palm Beach on the ocean front. They water it with salt water. It's pervious, of course, and it's much more beautiful than any lawns that most of us have. So that's a consideration and something that the town should encourage. It takes a lot less water, a lot less mowing, a lot less trimming. You don't have to run the leaf blowers as much. The fertilizer isn't needed. The pesticides aren't needed. So Florida native paspalum turf should be considered. It's a little bit more expensive than the normal turf that you see, but it's paspalum turf. It'd be great if the Garden Club would do a test plot of it, a 10 by 10 section, and show people how beautiful it is. Or you could go to Lake Worth Beach. When you go to Lake Worth Beach up by the pier, that's the turf that's all down near the water that the salt spray isn't harming. I do hope that you consider that. Also, when you put in a lot of plastic, you create a heat island, and we don't need to add heat. Also, the extraction of the oil to make the turf is something we want to try to curtail every chance we get. So those are my comments. Thank you.
He said his name.
Hi there, I'm Christian Aaronworth. I live on Sailfish Land. I actually wanted to second, you stole my thunder. You know, I have a lawn. We water it maybe once a day for 20 minutes. It's perfectly healthy. My neighbors across the street have Florida native lawns, perfectly healthy. They barely water it. I know because I have to water it in the summer. And the other thing that people, I've only been standing here for about 30 minutes or so because of, thankfully, a 95 traffic jam, which is normal. But, you know, something that a lot of people aren't considering is the microplastic aspect of putting in a fully synthetic lawn on their, in a beachfront area. You know, I know for a fact that whatever I'm going to put in my lawn is going to go straight into the ocean. So there's already there are tons and tons of studies of synthetic lawns causing massive microplastic problems that we're not going to see, obviously, because it's at the microscopic level. So I'm urging the commission to at least table this ordinance and make sure that we properly incorporate ocean-friendly regulations before we go launching into some completely ocean-unfriendly alternative to a normal natural lawn. Thank you.
Rich?
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, staff, Rich Lucibella, 5 Beachway North. I served on planning and zoning for a number of years, and I have enormous respect for Mark and for the job that they do. So I don't really want to get into the pluses and minuses of synthetic grass. I do want to comment on process. And the process that's happening here tonight is exactly what's supposed to happen. The residents of this town elected you, not planning and zoning. So it's natural that they would come to you with their concerns for and against. That's just a natural thing. The fact of the matter is that I believe you have a packed house here tonight because nobody believed you were going to pass this on first reading. That's why there's a packed house here tonight. So the concept of tabling this is absolutely wrong, in my opinion. It opens you to accusations, if later passed, of having passed it in the dark of night. So you either pass it now in open view or you reject it in open view. That's the way the process should work. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioners. Penny Kaczynski, 6,000 Old Ocean Boulevard, and I am a member of the dreaded Planning and Zoning Commission.
You guys got to change the name.
Oh, sorry. Thank you all for your time and the effort on this. I do have to say I'm surprised that 9 months later we're hearing all of this. It's been here at the commission a couple times, I think. It's been before us for 9 months. Well, this is your second reading, so at least it was here once before. So assuming that you weren't going to pass something is a bit strange, and why you wouldn't show up if you had a concern about it. I was involved in the research to determine if Gulfstream schools should switch their field from real grass, which never looks right, to synthetic turf. Unanimously, we decided against it. There are a myriad of reasons, all of which people that are more eloquent than me spoke of tonight. The plastics, the health problems, the issues with the things that are thrown off in the air. I guess I'm taken aback that someone could say real sod is more harmful than plastic. I'm just, somebody would have to prove that to me and show me the science behind it, because it makes absolutely no sense. But eliminating all of that, history and data have proven that having a thoughtful planning process creates a more beautiful community and necessarily leads to higher property values and therefore higher tax revenue. No one's mentioned any of that tonight. There's no argument that supersedes this. The towns of Palm Beach, Gulfstream, Manalapan, they're all proof. Regardless of any of the arguments here tonight, the beauty and the value of our homes will improve if we are thoughtful about planning and designing our community for the future. My husband always says, anytime we're arguing about anything, take it to the extreme to express the point. If you remain unconvinced, what if everyone in the town blanketed their lawns with plastic, fake turf, because that's what it is? What would that look like? And what would the consequences really be? So I respectfully request, as a resident of this town and a member of Planning and Zoning, that you approve the ordinance before you tonight. And if you can't approve it, then table it for the community workshop. And that's not approving anything in the dark of night. It's a community workshop where every individual in this room is invited to attend. That's in the sunshine. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Phil. I'm at 5880 North Ocean Boulevard. I have a personal affection with this ordinance because I own a company that is artificial turf company. I put it at my house, and I deal with every county from Miami-Dade to Orlando. And I mean, I haven't looked at every ordinance because clients call me and we do jobs and it's their job to understand there, but I've never run into a situation where it's this stringent of a restriction on artificial turf. Of course, there are situations in towns that require certain inspections and certain requirements, which we adhere to. But, rather than me get into exactly what a lot of people have said for a bunch of times now in terms of the benefits of it, whether we believe it or not, for me as a new resident here, it just doesn't feel right. And when it doesn't feel right, there's something disconnected for me in the sense of, here we are trying to beautify our place. Here we are trying to make sure that, adhere to every installation process that requires proper drainage and the stability of the look and the feel of the turf, with whether that be the base or what we put on top, what's called infill, a proper installation to beautify the place. And it's just it's taken aback that there's so much, that there's this ordinance in place. Now, I've been to, I went to someone's house here. Someone here, actually here, I guess they were looking for some information for this ordinance. And what's funny is that I stepped out of that house and I specifically said to the person, I said, there's these ordinance that's being put in place, but I look at a lot of these houses here that I would, create an ordinance on how they upkeep their grass or how they upkeep their bushes, or, so where does it stop? That's my concern. I also come to you to have a look at a website called Y-Green. It's an organization. It's energy spelled backwards. It's an organization that provides and facilitates grants for people to, do energy efficient and ideas, and they actually fund it and then put it back on your property taxes to pay it back. And it's a state. I don't know if it's a state. Well, it's a nationwide program because it's in California, Florida, Texas. And so it's, we're not all scientists here trying to figure out, the spill off of, off of the turf. But I don't know. Like I said, I just want to voice my concern as a resident, just that, we can sit here and debate all we want as to how it looks like or what it feels. But I mean, I can go around all houses here and I would give citations to hundreds of houses here that have lawns that I don't like, or to de-beautify the place. So that's my take on it.
Thank you. Joe?
Joe Belmonte, 5572 North Ocean. I'm going to keep this to 3 minutes. Okay, 2 points. Yeah, I know, you're welcome. The first point is, I was a member of a when I lived in Broward County think tank. Now, I have to admit that back then we did more drinking of beer than we did thinking, but it worked out. 3 days discussing the problems of Broward County, and back then, this is 34 years ago, the big term was saltwater intrusion. Every time you put on a lawn sprinkler, some of that salt water from that ocean back there seeps into the deep water wells. That means you have to take more water out of Lake Okeechobee. And if you've been to Lake Okeechobee, you don't want to drink that water. So 34 years ago, and we are still talking about watering the lawns. That's point number one. Point number two is that I don't want to bring up the term plastic grass. I don't even like that term. But whether I like it or not is not of anybody's concern or anybody's worry. But at the Ocean Ridge Yacht Club, we passed some things around, and our president is here, and Jay Cohen and Britt Flanagan, and they have 15 names of people who are voting against this ordinance. Now, 15 names means 30 people, because there's usually 2 people to a unit. And me being the lazy one uses my email, and I have 12 more email signatures, if you want to call them email signatures. But this is what they were talking about, and this is the point that's been brought out. But we have the first point, saltwater intrusion, we have to think about, and I think Terry did a good job of bringing up alternatives. And this is from one of our members. Of greater significance is the constitutional issue of a government ordinance that seeks to control what we do to our private property that has no basis or nexus with public health, safety, or welfare, or the ability of police, fire, emergency personnel to effectively operate. So the 2 points I want to bring up again is the saltwater intrusion. We have to do something about using so much water. And second, how do we impose or how do we not impose on people regarding freedom of the use of their own property without disturbing other people or making it unhealthy for them? Thank you.
Yes.
Zoanne Hennigan, 91 Island Drive South. I really didn't want to speak, but I can't help myself. In listening to everything that was said, I think it boils down to there's 3 core issues. The first was planning and zoning, and I think Mr. Marsh really hit some of that. The committee spent months discussing this issue and did not take this whole issue lightly. And I sat through those meetings, heard the discussions, and I think they were very thorough. They tried to consider all the pros and cons, and they were very sincere. And they are a recommendation body. They're not making, as some people thought, they weren't making any decisions. They were just making a recommendation to you guys. And anybody could attend. The agendas are always on the website. But this is their recommendation. The second major issue is obviously artificial turf. I didn't have a personal opinion one way or the other getting into this, so I did my own research. And I'm happy to share some of the details of that research. But the bottom line, if anybody does any extensive research, and not salesy kinds of stuff, but it's scary. I found that even though there are some advantages, but there are so many safety and environmental issues that the negatives so far exceed the positives. And from that perspective, I almost think that the planning and zoning in our town is almost generous in allowing artificial turf at all. I think the safety risks are solely owned by the homeowner, but the environmental risks affect the neighbors and our community as a whole. 2 of the core areas that I got information from was a water conservation group and an environmental advocacy group. And they both talked about how artificial turf is not environmentally friendly. It's not as safe as you think. It is a plastic component that breaks down all the chemicals that can escape into the environment. It compacts the soil and creates an inhabitable environment for living organisms in the soil. Someone has mentioned it does add to the urban heat, and it can be almost 20 degrees hotter than normal grass. And if that is something that affects people, you're going to water it to keep it cooler. But also, in the terms of water, it needs to be cleaned. There's going to be animal droppings and other things that are going to happen naturally on your artificial turf. So just like any other rug, it collects bits and pieces of pet or bird droppings and liquids from humans, and you're going to need to hose it down with water and sometimes even herbicides or pesticides. So it's not totally free of water or chemicals. And when it is removed and it needs to be replaced, the old turf just adds to landfill. Underneath, it kills healthy soil, the bacteria, worms in the root systems, and it's overall toxic. As it deteriorates, chemicals go off into the environment. And as an example, and as the turf becomes warmer, the amount of its off-gassing increases. That's the code for toxic fumes. And as an example of the being a reservoir for fungus and bacteria, for example, the women's soccer team will not play on artificial turf because it's resistant to, it could create bacteria like MRSA. And it's definitely, to what Penny had said, for school environments with kids playing on it, and if that's what you want in your backyard, it's very dangerous for children if they fall and scrape themselves. So I really have a problem with some of the marketing material that says how safe and environmentally friendly it is, and I really hope that you can consider that. The third piece is the property rights. Every town and probably every homeowners association has some form of rules for the rights of the group as a whole. And that's really what our town is really looking at, is community property rights. So whenever you take a residence, you're agreeing to the rules of that town. We have had these ordinances in our town for many years. I think we have, I don't know, close to 600 ordinances in Ocean Ridge. I mean, we have at least a big book full of them. We have ordinances, we have a comprehensive plan, all that have evolved to be good standards to keep our town safe, clean, and yes, aesthetically pleasing, so that Ocean Ridge is a great place to live. If you Google the mission of the town of Ocean Ridge, just Google it, and it says, the mission of the town of Ocean Ridge is to create and maintain a beautifully landscaped, diverse seaside community built around family and civic pride, state-of-the-art public services, and infrastructure that enhances the natural beauty of our town. I know I came to Ocean Ridge because not only did I like the way it looked and the people in this town, but I knew the town will try to preserve this look and feel of the town. And that's exactly what I think our staff tries to do, what P&Z tries to do. And I believe as elected officials, that's what you guys try to do. And it makes Ocean Ridge a more desirable place to live and ultimately should increase our property values. So I thank you for all your time and attention.
Any other public comment? Polly?
I'm not going to look back there. I don't want to see how big the crowd is. Just going to talk to you guys. Polly Joa, 35 Hersey Drive. The Joa family has been continual homeowners in Ocean Ridge for 70 years. So I care about this town. But tonight I'm here to speak against the ordinance. And it's not about the artificial turf. It is about the property rights. I have signatures from 18 homeowners on Hersey Drive who likewise oppose this ordinance. Altogether, roughly townwide, we have over 120 signatures. Give us till a workshop, we'll get you more. We oppose this because the ordinance seeks to regulate a homeowner's property based on others' personal preferences. Basically, we're being told, I want to control your yard even if I can't see it. It doesn't have a basis of health, safety, or welfare. The ordinance is based on the personal aesthetics of a few. And it takes control of our property away from us and gives it to the town. Property rights are serious business. We have surveys done to define our property. People feel so strongly about their properties, they end up in feuds with their neighbors. All about protecting their property. Whether or not we choose, as I said, to install artificial turf is not the point. This is about everyone's property rights, not visual rights. And many of us have chosen to live in Ocean Ridge because we don't want to be in a gated community. We don't want HOAs. We feel like we're being pushed in that direction. We don't want to relinquish our property rights for what some call aesthetics and others call character. We do not want to become someone else's idea of a Stepford community. We've always had character. We have homes of different ages, homes of different styles. We got a dozen or more paint colors out there. That's the character of our town. That's what everybody came here for. So I say that, and I do say for the future going forward, every single candidate that runs for commissioner campaigns on how much they love this town and they want to preserve it. The question needs to be asked, who or what is driving the change? And the answer is planning and zoning. They're proposing the changes. They have a vision for change. I was going to talk about the next ordinance coming up, but now I don't have to. So we certainly feel fortunate to have a mayor who's fighting for our rights, and we thank the commissioners. Oh, and I wanted to respond on one item about the Lantana ordinance, which the Ocean Ridge ordinance is a word-for-word copy of the Lantana ordinance, except Lantana does not restrict placement. Not the 25% of your side yard, the 25% of your rear yard, excuse me. Lantana does not restrict placement. Thank you for your time. Oh, and I have petitions that I'll give the clerk, and I have the Florida statute on the, that I'll give the clerk.
Eric? I'm missing Betty. Where's Betty?
Eric Reef, 8 Sailfish Lane. There's a lot of talk about character versus aesthetics, and I have no dog in this fight. I think both sides have some really, fair opinions. And just as an aside, make sure you differentiate between a turf athletic field and statistics that you're looking at from a turf athletic field versus turf that may go in a lawn. A turf athletic field, and again, I'm not on either side here, but a turf athletic field has black tires that are chewed up on there, very dangerous to kids because they can ingest it, and it increases the heat of the turf probably by about 20 degrees. That's just an aside, and I did want to point out, I walked by Bill, and I don't know Bill. I happened to walk by his yard the other day, and it looked terrific. My concern is, I live across the street from a house. Most of you are probably familiar with it because the person who owned it was a former commissioner here. And for 25 years, it's not an exaggeration, for 25 years, not one thing has ever been done to the front lawn. I'll say that again. In 25 years, nothing has ever been done to the front lawn. No rock has been turned over. No water has been put on the yard. There is a piece of the pool drain there that is exposed. It's dangerous. And candidly, it's disgusting. The house is falling apart, and I can't get the town to do anything about it. So we can talk about, this is not an HOA, and I understand that. But at the same time, we can't let, people run rampant. So one of the things that I wanted to bring up, I have pictures of the front yard that is rock, and there's other things on the yard that have never been changed in 25 years. But I think we need in this town a blight law. Everyone's talking about Gulfstream and Manalapan. Every town that I know of has some kind of blight law. And when people say, what is blight? I hate to use this analogy, but let's talk, when they ask what is pornography, and the Supreme Court Justice, I believe, said, I don't know a good definition, but I know it when I see it, right? And that's blight. And I think that it ties into this conversation because whether we end up with the turf or not, we need to have, if we're going to be putting in turf and the seams start coming apart and it's getting dirty and there's feces on it, we need to be able to go to somebody and say, I know we all have our rights, but so do I have a right as a neighbor to not look at something that candidly nobody's lived in for 20 years, even though they claim a homestead exemption. But we need to, I would ask you guys to consider a blight law.
I went by the property Eric's talking about on Sunday, and I'm getting together with Tracy and Wayne on it. It is remarkably deteriorated. And you're being generous when you say the front lawn. It's a non-existent lawn.
Thank you. I'd like to, if I can, just submit.
Sir, if you can come talk to me after, we do have stuff on the books and I'll
Okay.
show you.
And when I submit this to you, this is renovated as of yesterday.
Okay.
That's a new fence.
Other public comment?
We'll talk to you after the meeting.
Sarah, and then we'll do Betty. How's that? Oh, go ahead. You beat everybody.
Hi, Eva Asner, 13 Hudson. So, again, I don't want to make any whether it's right this way or that way. Are we sure this is safe? Chemicals are chemicals. We're trying to get away from anything that's plastic. And it looks like we're trying to introduce plastic in our lives again. What prevents my neighbors from really getting the artificial lawn and when the flood comes, sipping all the chemicals into my backyard? And the last question is, how many of you actually would buy artificial flowers for your wives or dear friends? That's a Valentine's Day plug.
They don't need water.
No, they don't.
Hi, I'm Sarah Stias, 16 Fayette Drive. I have a homeowner petition signed by every homeowner on Fayette Drive opposing ordinance 2019-15. And I won't restate what's already been so eloquently stated, but basically we see this as an avenue to further overreach on our property rights. As far as meetings, I live between two countries. I can't be at every meeting. I come when I can. And I think a lot of other people have the same thing. And in my 52-year history in Ocean Ridge, I grew up here, I've seen gravel in front yards, and gravel travels. I've seen outdoor carpeting that started out green and didn't stay that way. There are a lot of things that can be unsightly that can be done in property other than artificial grass. Thank you.
Any other?
My name's Chuck McIntyre. I live at 5514 Old Ocean Boulevard. So I came here tonight not knowing what was going to happen. Didn't have a thought about what I was going to hear. It seemed crazy that if I owned a piece of property and put artificial turf in, somebody could tell me that I have 10 years to get rid of it and pay for it myself. That just doesn't seem right. Didn't seem morally right. I have listened to everybody say, number one, I don't see how you could possibly vote for this thing. So that's the first thing. I mean, listening to everything tonight, that would not be a good decision, I don't think. I thought that the gentleman from the planning and zoning saying, let's go back and rework it, I don't think this is reworkable. I think, though, what's been exposed is that it's time that this community somehow get together a great task force and let's say, okay, what's going to happen over the next 50 years? And what's good and what's bad and what should we do and what shouldn't we do? You're probably doing it. I mean, I'm not that into politics or anything else, but we have an opportunity to do something really good. And for the planning and zoning people, it sounds like they worked awfully hard on this, and I appreciate, sitting in the back of the room, appreciated what they said. And my hat's off to them for working so hard and trying to come up with something. So I just think we have an opportunity to do something great in this town, and I think we should grab it and go for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Chuck. Any other public comment? Oh, Betty, I'm sorry. That's because Mickey's in front of Betty, so I can't see Betty.
Betty Bingham, 1 East Ocean Avenue. I wasn't going to talk until Polly said her family's been here 70 years. Our family's been here 62 years.
Can you move the mic closer to you?
What?
Yep.
My family's been here 62 years. And I choked when I heard that you were going to pass this ordinance while I was out of town. I think it's an infringement of personal property rights. I think we have a lot of ordinances that we're not taking care of. And I think government needs to be smaller, less intrusive, less expensive, and I don't think this is a rule that we need.
Okay. Oh, we got one more public comment.
Sorry, Stella Cole, 204 Beachway. So I do come to every meeting that I possibly can be here. When I'm in town, I'm always here. I said to this commission 2 months ago when it was brought up, where is this artificial turf? I hadn't seen any. You all graciously gave me addresses. I went and looked at it, and now this is a fine kettle of worms we've opened because everyone's annoyed. It has become a different issue. I could care less. I will never put artificial turf in, but I do want the right to be able to if I wanted to. So I don't think it's become an issue of this turf. I think it's become an issue of your property rights. And I'm from Jersey, and we just kind of like don't mess around with our rights. So that's kind of how I feel. Sorry. Thank you for listening. I appreciate it.
We're done, right?
No, Martin had his hand up.
No, he said no.
Yeah, he just said no.
He's blowing us off.
Okay, so now we turn to commissioner discussion. What happened?
Christian wants to speak again.
You already. Oh, yeah.
Hi, Christian Ehrenruth, Sailfish Land. My school, Pinecrest School, installed artificial turf, and we reverted back actually to normal turf on most of our grounds, mostly because in the summer, when a lot of us aren't there, and especially in the fall and in our hotter days, the fumes are overwhelming. So that's all I have to say. It's property rights aside, our atmosphere is also our property. So that's going to transfer. The fumes are going to go somewhere else, and I might be. My neighbor might have artificial turf, but then when those vapors travel into my yard, then suddenly that's on my property. So,
Just a clarification the gentleman already made. It's different turf, lawn versus playing fields.
I'm aware. Mr. Brief lives on my street, but also it is still plastic. And my school did not. We used turf on our fields, but we used the normal putting green turf for everything else, and it still smelled. Thank you.
Okay. We're all set, all right. So we're going to commission discussion. Before we get there, there's two residents that couldn't be here, and they asked me to read brief paragraphs from them. One is John Sessons, who lives on Anna Street. He wrote the editorial that the Coastal Star was kind enough to publish. Just in case you missed it, he says in his editorial, In the vote to determine whether Ocean Ridge would allow artificial turf to be installed on future projects, the P&Z made two presentations, neither of which had scientific basis for their recommendations to ban it, not even an admission that artificial turf eliminates a number of environmental concerns, such as fertilizer, pesticides, lawnmower emissions, grass clippings, or water usage. No, their concern was purely aesthetic. Then it goes on for a bit. So what does this council get to determine? Future agenda items are sure to include elimination of palm trees, color of grass allowed, strains of grass allowed, house color choices, approved architectural design, and of course, banning of big gulps. That was kind of fun. So that's John Sessions. Also, there's 18 people from Crown Colony that signed the petition. There are two leaders, well, actually a group of them went off on a cruise yesterday. So they asked me to simply read these 4 sentences. It's from Robert E. Kearns. I have 2 objections on the proposed ordinance 2019-15. First, I do not give up any rights to make decisions regarding my own property and strongly object to the town attempting to control my property that I pay taxes on. Secondly, and most importantly, I believe the ordinance is an overreach of a government regulation and infringes on personal property rights. If this passes, then what next? Government should not be in the business of forcing personal preferences on their constituents. I firmly believe that the town commission should vote against ordinance 2019-15. And I'll send those down to you after the meeting. Yeah. Okay, commission discussion?
Are we going to discuss, before we all get into a conversation about this that could last just as long as this just did, are we going to discuss Mr. Marsh's concept of moving this off to
I'm against
the
it.
workshop?
This needs to be voted up or down. The concept that this has been, this group has been sprung upon us is ridiculous, because I guarantee you, if the group wasn't here, it would pass, and then you would have no complaint. So to complain because a group actually came here for second reading to apparently oppose the ordinance is not a reason.
Oh, I don't think it's a
table.
complaint. I think it was a suggestion. So that's why I was asking how anybody else is taking that. Would anybody consider putting that out there to be discussed at the workshop? It's not a complaint. It's a suggestion by Mr. Marsh for a relatively difficult situation this evening. So I'm throwing it out there. Anybody else open to that? Bill?
I'd support you on that. Only because I think that the level of divisiveness and combativeness is off the charts, and nobody's gonna be a winner tonight whether we take a yes or no vote. And we are too small a community to put this type of neighbor against neighbor, flyers in your mailbox, petitions on almost any issue. So for that reason alone, I would like to see a deferment of it, a full discussion of it. Once again, there are several things, and I believe maybe Wayne, you could give me a heads up on this, but I heard that there was potentially some Florida state statutes that weren't even considered when we were looking at this ordinance. How does that work?
What has transpired is additional information has come up regarding certain statutes that were looked at, and part of the discussion has taken place tonight. So those things need to be vetted, I would think, before anything can really proceed. That'd be my opinion.
I think it's a very bad idea to table this in any way, shape, or form. We have, 150 odd people that came here on this issue to see the commission's vote on this issue, either yes or no. And
Okay.
it's a private property rights issue. Artificial turf
see
is
that.
almost secondary.
No, I see that, and it
And I think
concerns
to
me.
say, no, you know what, there's too many people here.
Nobody's
so
saying that. Nobody's saying that.
You're saying table it back to P and Z.
No, we're talking about having an open dialogue between P&Z, the public, and the commission.
We've had a pretty open dialogue.
Well, not yet. Phil, any?
Well, I mean,
any-
I'm totally confused. I went on the internet and
That's
all
what I
that
did.
and looked at, the pros and the
That's exactly what I'm
cons.
talking
And
about.
my issue is who's right.
Yeah.
You know, is it bad for the environment or is it good for the environment?
I've got a ton of research. I have made myself crazy researching this, so I was not going to even go there until I saw if this was a possibility. Don, what do you think?
I would like to ask the town attorney to discuss private property rights in relationship to the comments that have come out, that everyone feels that it's an infringement on their personal property rights in regards to no chain link fence in the front yard, where you can put a shed, where you can put a generator, how high your house can be, how dirty your roof can be, so on and so forth. So where do we stand on what is private personal property rights versus ordinances within the town?
Just about any ordinance you adopt, whether it's a zoning ordinance or a regular other ordinance, your ordinances regulate the residents and the property of the town. That's what they regulate, okay? So any ordinance you adopt is going to impact your residents one way or the other. So therefore, this ordinance, I hear the comments, and I have not looked at the statutes. I have not looked to see if there's some state statute or if there's some other guidelines out there from the Palm Beach County Health Department or whatever that preempts what we're trying to do here. I'm assuming not, just because there are lots of other ordinances out there that's similar to ours, not exactly, but similar to ours. Now, and I think it's up to the town commission to determine, okay, is this in the best interest of the town to adopt something like this or not? You all are the elected body of the residents, and you all get to make the determination on whether or not you think it is for a public purpose as far as adopting an ordinance like this. I don't see where there is I understand the argument of, well, you're going down the road of private property rights and infringement. I understand that, but I don't see where this ordinance really differs from a lot of the other ordinances that you adopt out there. And they, and the same argument can be brought up on those ordinances as well, just so you know. So I know it's not clear on that, but that's what ordinances do. They regulate your residents.
But I think the amount of public that's here shows that there's a feeling that this ordinance is an overreach.
And that's your determination, so.
All right, so back to the question. Is any done? So what would you think? Phil, you were kind of up in the air whether or not you thought.
Well, I mean,
we
if
should-
it's bad for the environment,
Well-
then I think we got to look at it.
Okay.
But if you do any research, it has both ways. So if it's kind of neutral, you got the positives and negatives, and I wouldn't want to overreach. But I mean, if it's ruining the environment worse than what we're doing with the pesticides and all that, then I think we've really got to seriously consider it. But who tells us that? You know what I mean? We got to get somebody. But that's one of the issues I have is, wouldn't the state regulate artificial turf if it was really bad for the environment? Wouldn't they nix it? I mean, wouldn't there be laws against it?
I think it's all coming around.
I'm sorry, what?
I think there's more and more information coming forward about the effects. Like I said, I made myself crazy here looking at all this, and I purposely stayed away from any marketing, manufacturing sites, which are where they say everything's good. So we can go through all my information if you like, or I'm just seeing if there's any traction to follow Mr. Marsh's suggestion. Otherwise, then we can just continue with our discussion. So, what do you think?
Well, what's the big difference between nixing it tonight and then going back to look at it, or just tabling it right away and going back and looking at it?
I think
Aren't they two of the same
We're here
things?
to make
if
a
we're gonna
vote.
look at
All
it
these
again?
people came to hear what the commission is going to do on this private property issue. And why are we saying, well, we're not going to make that decision?
It's an
It's
artificial turf ordinance.
right. And obviously, from what we're seeing, the citizens don't like it. It's not an artificial turf ordinance, as Art said, pointed out, and you're asking why people didn't know this was happening. It's called, what was it, efficient water landscaping ordinance? So we're here to make we're elected to make decisions like this,
We
right?
can go there. I'm just looking to see if there could gain any traction to have we're having a workshop anyway, where we're discussing situations and possible upcoming ordinances. P&Z is crafting, getting some input, the public's welcome, so I'm just throwing it out there. We can definitely make a decision here, but I'm just throwing it out there.
I want
Anybody
to say 2 words, home rule. You all have heard home rule. One of the big things that we fight in this town is Airbnbs. One of our saving graces in this town is that we passed an Airbnb regulation in 2011 that has kept the state legislature from coming into our town and opening up the town for more Airbnbs so that we still regulate them. My concern is that if we don't pass this tonight, it leaves us in a position where we don't have any regulation, and the state legislature is hell-bent for leather trying to pass more regulations to come down on all the communities. So to pass it tonight puts it on the books and makes it an ordinance. And then to Art's, if Art's still here, Art's point, if we pass it tonight, it goes to P&Z, and then we can go back from P&Z and correct the ordinances the way that they need to be done, as opposed to putting it off tonight.
That's absurd.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, wait a minute, it's my turn, okay? Just wait a minute, it's my turn.
He showed respect.
Where's the civility?
Yeah,
No.
I mean, this is commission
Lucy,
discussion.
please.
I agree.
A mom.
That's right.
Yes, Don.
So that's the mindset that I came in with tonight, okay, is to pass it, it becomes an ordinance, and then for sure, it needs to be revised. I mean, there's things that I don't care about.
Do we have a gavel in here?
Yeah, where's your gavel?
So, here, Don, you must be misspeaking. You don't pass an ordinance knowing that it is so terribly flawed or should not be passed, so you can send it back to P&Z to fix. That's what you just said.
I don't think it's terribly flawed. I think because of the home rule issue and what's going on in the state, if we don't take a stand today on what we want, and then as time goes on, we've still got these issues of, is it a good thing or is it a bad thing? The science is changing almost daily. So,
Make a motion and call the vote.
Well, we're having discussion.
Yeah, but you're having a mob rule.
No, we're not. No, they're not. They didn't mean that.
Okay, you want to have a discussion?
Absolutely. If nobody wants to put it forth towards the workshop to have more discussion before it passes or fails, then that's fine. I'm just throwing that out as the first option.
Okay, so let's
before
have
we
the
go there.
discussion. So there's 2 issues here to my mind, right? Property rights, which you know how I feel. I don't know how other commissioners feel. I feel this is a gross intrusion into your property rights. At the first meeting, which I voted against this, I voted not to pass this. I even suggested if you couldn't see it from the road, i.e. you had a hedge, you could use it, and that was rejected by my fellow commissioners with the exclusion of Phil, who was out with the flu. This is a severe private property right to me. This is overreach, this is infringing right up to our front door. It's a matter of aesthetic, personal taste versus ownership of your property. The second issue is the environmental issue, okay? And everything about artificial turf, and we'll get to what artificial turf is made from, everything about artificial turf is more environmentally friendly than sod. That's a fact, okay? Now you get to the next step of it. Everyone keeps, the gentleman in the back and a few other people have mentioned, it's plastic, it's plastic, it's plastic. Well, the studies that were done, that were found the leakage and the micro leakage, are published in 2015 and refer to research in 2011. And since then, as we have an expert who actually owns the company here will tell you, the standards for artificial turf have dramatically increased so that there is no leakage, number one. Number two, at end of life, you're worried about end of life, where it's going to go, into the landfills. No, that's not what happens. At the end of life, this AstroTurf is collected by AstroTurf recycling companies, and they then recycle it Or they might go into a neighborhood and repurpose it at a playground, or some community doesn't have enough money to install some form of cushion for the children on the swing set. So those are just facts that are wrong. That's how I feel about the environment of this issue.
Christine, you wanna go? Sorry.
I would prefer, like I said, to take this to a workshop, because I don't think we have all the answers about what the state statutes are. I don't necessarily refute what you found, but I also don't agree with what you found, because I don't know. I've done a little research, and it depends on which site you go on as to which way you're leaning, and you obviously, as humans, pick out what feels most comfortable to you. I do agree with Don with home rule. Going to all the league meetings and all the district meetings, it is reprehensible what the state legislation is getting ready to force down our throats. So, I would prefer the workshop, but if you're gonna force a vote, I will be voting in favor of the ordinance.
All right, so I did my research. Anybody that knows me knows I do my research. So I pulled up a whole lot of stuff, which actually Christian, a couple other people brought up as well. Bottom line, it is plastic. And plastic is not, as we have learned, not truly recyclable. Okay, it doesn't decompose, mostly ends in the landfill. Big problem. It's a petroleum-based product, creates pollution and waste in the manufacturing. It's far from maintenance-free. Herbicides like Roundup and fungicides are included in the washing. Both are hardly decent for our table. And it is permeable now, so that means guess what goes down to our table? It doesn't absorb animal waste. It's a reservoir for not only the bacteria but the fungus, contaminated organic matter. It doesn't have the normal biocycles in nature that reduce the hazards. And even though we do not have a big soccer field here, somebody brought up about the Women's Soccer League, that they had just recently took legal action to avoid ever having to play on it because of the issues that they've had with injuries.
Injuries.
All right. Wait a minute, wait a minute, no, absolutely not, because now it's my turn. Now it's my turn. Please. I listened so respectfully to everybody, whether or not I agreed. I mean, we deserve the same, don't we? Toxic, okay, as it degrades, quantities of chemicals are released. Toxins in artificial turf threaten our health via contact, consumption, water, and inhalation, exposing humans and other living things to acetone, arsenic, and about 5 other wonderful dioxins and situations here. So there's our health. When people say it's property rights, it's not about our health, I'm going from the health part right now. Originally, when I first thought about it, I'm thinking aesthetics, because that's where I'm aesthetically minded, but I think that's the least of our concerns here. No filter, hence the chemicals stay trapped in the turf or leach into the water table. The heat, oh my God, the artificial turf retains heat. It's actually an environmental heater, absorbs and overheats to the touch in direct sun. Temperature, according to a Brigham Young study, temperatures reach nearly 200 degrees below it.
What's the year of that study?
Okay, I don't have the year, but we can look it up if you like. Okay, I don't think it's made that many huge forward moves. Another study in California stated that asphalt parking lots around these fields are actually cooler than the turf is. They say grass in August measures approximately 74 degrees, real turf, natural turf, whereas synthetic turf gets to about 150. Typically, pets, barefoot children don't tolerate it. Walking on hot creates heat island. I heard that term somewhere else. Although it's hailed for water-saving benefits, how do you cool it down? You water it. To keep it clean, you utilize water. Now we'll get to the part that really bothered me, destroying the food chain underneath. That heat carpet that we're lying down there, that kills everything, that dirt under there, that sand where we're supposed to have things growing, it kills the healthy soil bacteria, worms, root systems, blocks access to the soil beneath for burrowing insects, bees, oh my God. Ground above for soil dwellers will be starved because there's no food beneath it and offers no habitat for pollinators. This is a huge concern in view of dramatic global decline in insect species. Antithesis of green space for our planet. Stops natural photosynthesis, which means it does not clean the air. That's one of the reasons that everybody is pushing for a greener planet, because you know the deal. Sucks in carbon dioxide, puts out oxygen. So it's basically, someone else said this, big plastic green rug. It doesn't breathe or sweat. One of the major jobs of Real Green's turf is to passively cool and clean the environment. It does not. Natural turf takes in carbon dioxide, lets out the oxygen and water molecules as byproducts. These evaporate. It cools the environment. Cooling affects people as well as their energy bills. NASA Clean Air Study speaks to natural materials being the filter for the air and the dust around us. Penn State study says turf grass is the most sensible approach to countering greenhouse effects. As the turf becomes warm, we have the off-gassing. Let's see. As it gets, what do we say? The off-gassing, we talked about, Christian brought this up. That's a code for toxic fumes. Measurable ill effects from this is a concern to the neighbors. So now we're not just on private property rights, we're talking about us as a community. It says that the industry knows about the risk of high heat, so often turf is impregnated with flame retardants. Effective drinking, eating, plants raised with toxic water. The 7 East Bay Municipal Utility Directors, that's up in the San Francisco area, found it easy to just say no to any kind of rebate for turf, which many, we were talking about that before, when it first started, bring in your grasses, we'll give you a rebate for that. Nope, they learned not so good. It is not eco-friendly. It has no climate benefits. It produces the plastic, emits carbon, uses fossil fuels. So I'm looking and I'm digging in this and I'm making my little notes here. So I contacted University of Florida, which most people know is the big guy in Florida for xeriscaping landscaping. That statute we were all referring to was all U of F information. They proponent of Florida-friendly, it's trademarked for heaven's sakes, Florida-friendly landscaping, which is science-based research. And it reads, the application of science-based landscape practices to design and maintain attractive, sustainable landscapes. 9 principles, blah, 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 basically gets to the part of right plant, right place, minimize the need for supplemental water, fertilizer, and pesticides. They actually, on their website, they put out landscaping ordinances that most municipalities utilize. They borrow, they do like we did, we look at the other cities and we utilize that. So this is what I'm looking at and I'm thinking, okay, I need somebody to confirm this for me because I can also find it saves water, it does all that. So it took me a while, but I got in touch with Dr. Marco Schiavone, who is the turf expert for the University of Florida. Took me a while to get him because the poor guy was at a science symposium giving a paper. So basically I said to him, here's my list of problems. Am I going to say something wrong? Am I offbeat here? I don't want to be giving out bad information. And he said I was spot on. Everything that I look for is what he's discovered. He came from, let's see, where did he come from? He came from the University of California, Riverside. Big advocate of replacing natural grass with anything that was synthetic for 2 reasons, environmental and end user result. He's conducted studies. He's flown, he showed me pictures where he flew over the cities in California showing with the infrared photos of where little spots of synthetic grass versus non, and it was crazy. What did I say, 74 degrees for grass in the highest days of August versus approximately 150 degrees on synthetic grass? Okay, so let's see, he said, and I know people don't like their weeds, but he said another environmental concern is that a synthetic stand does not prevent weeds, does not allow weeds to come in, and weeds are healthy. Like it or not, they are really healthy. He says majority of people try to spray all their weeds, and also they have to spray on the synthetic turf. So it's the same situation. So he says in terms of human health, it's finally official. Artificial turf causes more injuries than NASH for the athletes, but of course we don't have that. But nonetheless, he actually said if he had been in town, he would love to come and speak to us. But so to me, this was a guy who has no dog in the fight. His job is specifically turf specialty at University of Florida, which has their, for their proponent of Florida-friendly landscaping. He specifically said, because I asked the question, Florida-friendly landscaping does not promote the use of 3 items: all rock, rubber mulch, and artificial turf. Florida-friendly landscaping contributes to conservation, protection, and restoration of Florida. So this is the background that I came up. And I actually made the effort to get out and speak to somebody who was going to do more than just give me little, bites from websites. So I'm going with them.
Okay, I would just say one point. The U.S. State Artificial Turf Rebate Program. Now, you mentioned California. Available Arizona, California, Colorado, Florida, Oregon, Washington, Nevada, New Mexico. There's some form of rebate program.
Right.
In California.
Well, that's,
So,
what I
and
read
in
to you
Oregon,
was
you
San
can't get more
Francisco's
green.
area said no to the rebate. So that's what I'm saying, not everybody in California
So I'm hearing the
does
commission is
it.
right. We have a group of citizens that are here to hear what we're going to vote on their property rights.
Oh, yeah, we'll get to property rights, go ahead.
To vote on their property rights. And they've made their wishes known, and now, tonight, we'll see what happens.
Well, I think that the health and environmental issues, and pardon the pun, trumps the concept of, don't tell me what to plant on my lawn. And do y'all have the ordinance book, the code book there by chance? It shows all our ordinances and codes? Okay, so these are there, and about 50% of them, we'd say, would be on dealing with private property situations? In that, somewhere there, right?
Well, the land development code is chapter 64.
And also the fact that some of the most beautiful towns in the country are the ones that are regulated. Regulation brings who? Somebody said that. Somebody said that sometimes the sense of regulation is what improves property rights and makes a beautiful town. Carmel, arguably the most beautiful town in the country, is the most highly regulated one to know. And this ordinance, actually, I thought was relatively generous because we're not outlawing it like many
It's
places
generous.
do.
It allows 15%.
25.
15% of your rear and side yards. That's 15% of your rear and your side. Subtract the front. Yes, that's exactly what it says.
What is it?
Well, it's 20, the ordinance, you may be factoring in something else, but it's 25% of that area of the rear and the side, not counting the structure.
Right. So pretend your house is sitting in the middle of your property, 25%, 25%, 25%, 25%. You can only have 25% of 75%, which is 15%.
Is that Yale math again?
Yeah, oh my, that would be
That's
Phil.
sorry, Steve. That's it?
All right, another concept that I was going to just throw out there, I was thinking we were going to workshop, but we're not, but another concept I was going to throw out there is the right-of-way in most people's front yards can extend, I know we all have such weird platted spots here in Ocean Ridge. The right-of-way can extend anywhere up to, from 7 feet to possibly 20 feet in the front yard? As an average? So maybe we could make some kind of compromise, because I remember from the beginning you were totally anti, don't tell me what to do in my front yard. Maybe if we were able to move a little space there, like not in the right-of-way, and then must be screened. And nobody's going to be checking the screen. The screen means you don't see it. Nobody's looking over it. But basically, we want to see that you don't see it. So what do you say about right-of-way? Would that be an average? Or anybody? I know we are such a broken up. I'm just throwing things out here now, trying to make it nice.
I agree with you, Susan. I appreciate that, but what you're doing is just pointing out just how flawed this ordinance is and why it should be killed. And then if P&Z chooses to approach this from a less aggressive standpoint, that's P&Z's decision.
I don't think it's all that flawed, but I'm just offering up something else. I'm just looking for compromises here so we can move
On a second
forward.
reading, I don't want to be sitting here trying to rewrite an ordinance.
We
can live
amend
with that too.
ordinances all the time.
Right. That's what I thought we did.
It's not a big deal.
I think
Yeah, that's what I thought we
yeah,
did.
that will be a very long, tedious
This
process.
way it doesn't go to, this way it's not a black and white thing. I'm looking for some gray area here.
Well, I think you're going to vote as you're going to vote, and that will be on the record.
So no amendments.
I mean, I would just mention that, it seems like the language that you're talking about, possibly amending it, I don't think we can do it. I don't think we can amend it tonight and then say, let's vote on it,
I'm not
okay?
suggesting we
Oh,
amend it tonight.
okay. I think what you would need to, you have 3 options. You could vote to deny, vote to approve, or vote to postpone it. And I would recommend you do it to a date certain, just so we don't have to advertise again. But it's up to you all on, whether or not how you want to approach that.
How's that work for anybody here? Or are we dug in? Phil, what do you think? Sorry, I keep looking down at you, but.
Like I said, the environmental issue is big for me, but also the property rights. It's
Yeah.
tough to tell people what to do on their own property. And if it's that close with the pesticides compared to these microisms that are going into the ocean, you know, I don't know. You know, you did a lot more research than I did. I didn't find that kind
But
of
would you
stuff. But I mean,
consider
can-
moving,
what-
would you consider tabling it to look to an amendment, or do you want a straight up and down vote like Stephen does?
I think a straight up and down, but I think it should go back to P and Z in our workshop also.
Oh,
So
okay.
I'd say either say yes
So
or
you do-
no now for the ordinance, but then go back and ask.
Oh, you want to say no? And
Yeah, I want to say no or yes for this, and then, you know, I kind of,
Don, what do you think?
you know, I think the property rights is a big issue here. It's a big issue, and if it's that close on the environment, you know, why should we get involved? I mean, we don't get involved. Sort of like Terry, he did a great job on his landscape. Should we force everybody to do what he did? I think a better idea is get him to do all our landscaping.
I think the property rights issue has nothing to do with the issue of the artificial turf. I think it's a misconception of what we're trying to do here. If you take property rights out of it, this ordinance would be no different than me telling you that you can't have a chain link fence in your front yard. And there are people here that would love to have a chain link fence, and we could have this many people in here arguing for or against a chain link fence. What you're talking about, I think, the ordinance as it is written should be passed. It should go back to P and Z, or P and Z should then look at it and amend those pieces of it that have obviously got the residents upset. We should go back and look at that.
I don't even know how to respond to that, though.
I know you don't, but you, the other thing that you
Why
don't
don't you
understand.
vote no and then tell P and
Because-
Z to start afresh?
Because if you say no tonight,
Yeah.
okay, it goes back to P and Z. 3 months or 4 months
Yep.
down the road, it'll come back.
Yep.
And in 2 months, the state will come in and say.
And if the state comes
artificial
in to the
turf
coastal
can go
towns-
anywhere you want, let me finish.
Right.
The state will come down and dictate what we can do in the town. And if we don't have an ordinance on the books that supersedes that, which is the way that most of the ordinances work, we're gonna get stuck with whatever the state legislature says they want to do with or without artificial turf. Suppose they come down and say no artificial turf, period.
Right, but Don, it's going on right now with the legislators.
Sure.
Right, but they don't have any of those bills. There's no such thing as an artificial turf bill. So they can't do it until next year. They've already started the process with the
And what will
short-term
happen
rental.
with the state?
In the legislation, you know that
can
stuff
tag on it.
gets tagged on at the last minute all the time.
What
so-
will
but
by the
you're
lobby
correct,
in
I haven't seen
Tallahassee
anything different.
is Tallahassee will order us to use more artificial turf. That's what will come out of Tallahassee.
I don't believe
Because
so.
of the nitrogen runoff that's causing the green algae in the ocean to continue creeping south. And what was
I
it,
don't think so.
66% of that's coming out of barrier, well, I shouldn't say barrier
It's
islands, but
coming
out
out
of
of the
human
septic and sewer
septic
systems.
sewers.
Right.
Correct.
It has nothing to do with artificial turf where
Right,
that's coming from.
exactly.
Are we
No,
ready
but
for
it's coming
about,
from the grass.
I'm sorry, I think we ought to bring it to a vote and let's move on.
I make a motion to deny it and move it over to P and Z to talk about it on the 24th as a workshop, anew.
I guess, so your motion is to deny ordinance number 2019-15 on second reading and give direction to bring this matter to, or I guess give direction to staff to have this matter placed on the joint workshop meeting coming up, I think, in February 24th?
Correct, and what I would like to add too is to put it more on the blight ordinance, sort of like what Eric had said, because that's what I had thought about before. If it's bad, you see the seams, if it's rolled up, then that's a problem, but if they do it, you know, that it looks aesthetically nice, then that'd be fine. But more important to me is, when we go into that P and Z workshop, is we get some experts to tell us what the balancing of the environment, how bad is it for the environment? Because there's an awful lot of information out there that is good. There's no pesticides, that kind of stuff, but then you're saying it creates pesticides, or you have to get rid of some of the fungus or whatever. So all that's gotta be balanced before I would like to make a final decision.
Does that sound reasonable?
So, point of order, can there be two motions on the floor?
No, we need to have one motion and vote on that, and then if it fails, then a second motion can be made. But first of all, before this, someone needs to second this motion.
I'll second it.
Okay. All those in favor?
You may want to do a roll call on this.
Great idea, actually. Okay, roll call?
Commissioner Bessler?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Magruder?
No.
Hang
Mayor.
on. What are you voting yes on?
Well, to deny it, because I
Yes.
said to deny it, so I'm
You made a
agreeing
motion
with
to
what my
deny.
motion was.
Yes. So I'm doing
Or
roll call
don't
for his
move, all
motion.
right, don't move it forward.
The motion is to deny.
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So he voted yes. Vice Mayor Magruder said no.
I'm against the motion.
Mayor Cos?
Yes.
Commissioner DeHathis?
No.
Commissioner Herbert?
Susan says no.
Okay, so that motion fails.
Okay, now, what comes next? Okay, so I could try again a motion to defer.
You can make a motion to postpone, and I would probably, do it, you can just do it defer, but I would recommend you probably do a motion to postpone to a date certain, which the next meeting would be March 2nd. Now, that doesn't mean that it's going to appear on there that you have to take action on it then. Something could come up between now and then, or between your joint workshop, and then you all could take action at that time to say, no, let's postpone it further, or do whatever action you want to. It's up to you.
And that's a full week between the workshop and the next commission?
Right, but that's not probably going to give a lot of time for staff. I'm just kind of thinking how this stuff moves,
She can
so.
make a simple motion just to defer.
Well, yes, she can, and then if we decide to bring it back for a second reading, we can re-advertise again. So it's up to you.
What I'd like to, help me out here, Brian, what I'd like to do is postpone it, not defer it, because I'm with Don. Lobbying goes on in Tallahassee. The home rule is a very big concern right now. They would love to overturn our Airbnb thing, so I'm concerned to leave too much open space. Therefore, if we postpone until the next,
March 2nd?
right, the March 2nd meeting, even though we'd be really scrambling if we were going to say amend it at basically the meat of and amend it there, would there be time to put it on there?
Well, I mean, I can just tell you, I mean, based on the depth and just the issues that you're getting into here, I don't want to speak for Tracy, but I'm not quite sure how staff would be able to come up with, I guess, the language or the information that you all are looking for. If you wanted to either continue on with this ordinance, or at that point in time, you may get enough to where you go, no, let's change it enough, let's go back to first reading. I don't know, there's a lot of options at that time. So, and I can't tell you what those are until we see what the changes are that you all want to make, if there's any changes you want to make.
Right, we would have to make that determination at the workshop at that point.
Okay. Actually, I would think that the postponement might serve both purposes, because if we postpone it absolutely on the next commission meeting, we could discuss it and come up with sticking with P and Z's original. If we had an amended thing, we'd probably have to push it off till April.
And you can always postpone it further at that
Right.
meeting, it's up to you.
And that would be, again, going back to first reading in?
Well, depending on the changes, if we're changing the caption, if we're doing things like that, then my recommendation would be, no, we need to go back to first reading. So, which means then, procedurally, we would probably vote this one down and have a new ordinance there. Okay, I'm just putting it out there. Okay, yes.
Exactly asking.
Okay, so procedurally, that's kind of the way it would work.
Okay. Let's see here. So I am going to make a motion to postpone it until the following,
Until March
March
2nd,
2nd.
is that what you're saying? March 2nd at
March
6
2nd.
PM
Right.
at that meeting?
right,
Okay.
that's where I'm going. Anybody
So you're
else?
postponing it to a date certain of that date?
Correct.
Okay.
Susan, does your motion also, do you want to discuss this with P and Z at the joint workshop?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry, yes,
Okay, so
include that, please,
include
yes.
that.
postpone it to a certain date.
A
and
date certain of
discuss-
March 2nd
Right,
to 2020 at 6 PM.
correct,
Okay.
all right.
And, not to interrupt you, but by discuss, you mean the actual wording of the ordinance?
Anything. It's an open meeting to discuss anything our little hearts desire with P and Z.
Okay. Do we hear a
Okay,
second?
anybody second?
Sure, I'll second that.
All those in,
Do a roll call.
Do a roll call.
Yeah.
I love that, Brian.
Commissioner Fessler,
No.
Vice Mayor Magruder,
No.
Mayor Cos,
Yes.
Commissioner DeHassett,
Yes.
Commissioner Herbert,
Yes.
Okay.
Oh my God.
Yes.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor. You've just taken this action, and look at this room filled with your constituents. How, I'm getting to a point of order. How are these citizens to know what, when, where, and on March 2nd, Counselor, what it is you're going to be taking up? What is the situation, the parliamentary situation, when you get to March 2nd?
I postponed it. It would either be the same ordinance or at our workshop, if we decided to add language or what have you. From there, at the March 2nd meeting, we would go forward or deny it and try
There's only
again.
2 commissioners to kill this outright. So what Susan, we lost that point.
for a point of order, you're not a member of the commission.
So Susan is saying to defer it, to give us an opportunity, in my mind, to fix the ordinance. Now, that isn't what Susan's saying.
Right.
And that's, to me, the only option left is deep cost. And I agree with your point that there's a lot of people here that came out because they wanted this ordinance killed, and it didn't happen.
So based on the motion passing, the Planning and Zoning Commission and the Town Commission will meet in a joint session on February 24th at 4:30 PM here in the Commission chambers, and the public is invited to attend. After they hold that meeting, the item of synthetic turf will be on the March 2nd agenda at 6 PM here in the Commission chamber.
And clarification, and I think because depending on what we decide, it'll either be a first reading or a second
Correct.
reading about the
Correct.
changes.
Yes.
All right.
When did we get to be so rude?
I don't know. Good Lord.
Well organized show.
Somebody said motion to adjourn.
Yeah, what happened? I didn't hear that gavel. What do you think? We should have put it at the end. Made them stay through the whole thing, right? We gotta stay, they gotta stay.
Del Rey all the time.
I know. But we got our diehard staying.
Meeting over?
Just for them. Oh, look, even they can go.
Well, it's so low, I mean,
Oh, I don't know.
That would be nice.
Yeah, we're giving you guys a couple minutes to leave.
Thank you.
yeah, you better watch out, Chief. She pretty,
You can just sit back.
yeah.
She's got it covered.
Mayor, you
Back to order. All right, back to order. Item 4, first reading of ordinance number 2020-01.
Mayor, that was
That's
removed
struck,
from the
that's
agenda.
struck.
Yes.
Great. We're moving fast now. Authorize future investments by town funds, uptown funds by Tracy.
Let me see how quickly I can go. Now that we have collected the majority of our ad valorem revenue for the fiscal year, it's time to review our investments. The town's existing money market funds are fully insured and earning interest at the rate of 1.65%. There have been some adverse market conditions this week, so the current CD rates are low. In order to be aggressive enough to gain more return on our investments and at the same time make sure we have enough cash flow to cover our obligations, I would suggest at this time that we transfer $2 million from our general operating account into our money market account at City National Bank, and then wait for market conditions to improve before we purchase another CD. I'll continue to check the rates and come back to the commission next meeting for an update and additional recommendations to maximize our investments at that time.
Public comment? Phil, do you want to mention a few words on this?
I know, it's pretty much accurate. What it is it's just a cash flow issue. We've received in the first 3 months 73% of our real estate tax revenue, but of course, we've only incurred about 25% of our expenses because it's only a 3 months. So eventually that'll match up at the end of the year at 100% for expenses and revenue. But for this time being, we've got an extra couple million so that we should invest it. Well, we're not investing, we're putting it in a money market fund and earning interest
Just to make
income.
more money.
So it won't lose any money.
Okay. Do
2
we,
million, yes.
Have a motion to authorize?
I move to authorize Town Manager Stevens to transfer $2 million from the town's general operating account into the town's money market account at City National Bank.
I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. Item number 6, Town Manager's Evaluation.
Okay, and if you thought synthetic turf was fun, here we go. Annual employee evaluations are completed each year on the hire date. The collective town manager completed evaluation forms are attached for your review and may be discussed at the meeting if the commission wishes to do so. If the commission desires to grant an annual raise based on the results of the evaluation, a motion will need to be made to do so in order for the proper paperwork to be filed. The commission budgeted for up to 5% raise for the FY20 fiscal year, and as a reminder, the 5% raise is still below the market average for a town manager according to the salary surveys completed during the budget year. The current town manager salary is $102,500, and the starting salary for town manager according to the town commission adopted salary range chart is $125,000. Which is based on salary surveys completed during the budget process. I want to take this time to thank the commissioners for their confidence in me and for taking the time to provide the valuable feedback that you have, so I can use that as a tool to grow and learn for the benefit of the residents of Ocean Ridge. It's truly my pleasure to serve each and every one of you.
Thank you, Tracy. Public comment? We should move the podium.
It gives me a chance to get up and get the stiffness out of my legs. But Terry Brown, Harbor Drive South. I just wanted to remind everybody that there were a group of people that supported Tracy's elevation to town manager. And I have some involvement with the town, as you know, and I talk to people and I talk to town staff. And I really believe that she's done a fantastic job. I read every one of those evaluations. And I know that she's done a good job. And then I looked at the salary scale, and I really believe that 5% is not enough. It's not going to bring her up where she really should be. She should be at the minimum, which is $125,000, for the kind of stuff that she's going to have to do, and you're going to give her to do, and the state's going to give her to do, and the county's going to give her to do, that really there should be more compensation for the headaches of dealing with town government. All of the people I know that work in government are way above, and they don't have the responsibility that she has. Thank you.
Yes.
I feel like I'm Terry Brown number 2, talking all the time.
That's my job. I always just follow you.
Okay, all right. Zoanne Hennigan, 91 Island Drive South. First of all, Tracy, you have done a phenomenal job, and I'd like to personally thank you so much and really welcome you and hope you continue doing a phenomenal job. The salary survey thing that you provided was very helpful. I would like to say, though, that when you look at these factors, and this is, I put my HR hat on, the population of Ocean Ridge and the number of employees, full-time employees, doesn't really tell the story of what we have in Ocean Ridge and what Tracy's job is and what we should be paying her. I think years ago I might have thought this is a pretty sleepy town and it wasn't a tough job. But in this case, I think this job has gotten extremely complex. I think Tracy has done a phenomenal job of stepping in immediately with, I don't even want to say with no transition. I think she's taken over trying to clean up all the issues, or as many issues as possible, that we've had in the past. And we currently have some pretty significant issues, aside from turf, but, you know, some really significant issues now, and we're going to have even more significant issues in the future. If we had hired somebody from the outside, we never would have had as much progress as we've had now, and we probably would have given them considerably more than $102,000. So with her, the work she's done, with the work she's going to do, the complexity, and the smooth transition, and the knowledge not only of the town manager job that she's done, but of the other administrative jobs that she's managing, and her knowledge. I'm not going to recommend 125 or a specific amount of money, but 5% is peanuts. That's nothing, even though that's what's in the budget, and I think you guys need to really give her a huge boost of salary and a huge thank you. So thank you.
Commission discussion?
I think the 5% issue comes from a comment that I made. It was based on this being an interim review from when she first started. This would be like the 6th month, and we wanted to take a look at it. And it was suggested at that time that we would be considering a maximum of 5%. That's what I put in on my evaluation. I think I'm the only one that had a percentage in there. I certainly don't have a problem with 125 or 135. I think Tracy has done a phenomenal job. Somebody that can get up at 4 o'clock in the morning in Port St. Lucie and drive 2 hours.
She's moved down here. She's 2 minutes away.
Now.
We're paying her for now.
Yeah. Well, then you can make the motion on what we should increase her salary to, and we'll
Okay.
vote on that.
So I was just doing some math, right? You're currently at 102,500. 5%, you jump to 106, you say here. So here's what I suggest. I think we should just double that. Go right to 112.50.
Well, my comment is 112.50 it's unrealistic for what the job that she's doing right now.
Well,
I think that at 125 is the minimum that we should start at.
I think Tracy's doing an excellent job. I do think experience matters. Tracy knows I think she's doing an excellent job because I sat down and talked with her about my eval. However, I'm from a corporate world and experience matters. And Tracy's really been full-time manager since October, so we're looking at 4 months. Doing fabulous. And I think it's just too much of a jump to go from 100,000 to 125.
I don't think in this case that the salary jump really matters. What matters is the job. And I'm not sure who spoke to it, but the responsibilities of a town manager that Tracy has are the same responsibilities that the Lantana manager has, that Mount Manalapan manager has, that Gulfstream manager has. The number of people that are involved in working in Ocean Ridge really doesn't have anything to do with the governmental requirements, the financial requirements, and so on and so forth of her position.
But we've also brought on a building official to help Tracy out. Just remember that. Anyway, I'm one person.
I have a question. When we set the salary level this evening, then is it a review again on your anniversary date of?
Next year, January.
So it'd be one full year?
Yes.
Right.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
I think you're the one that actually said to do the January review back in October.
I think it is. Yeah, I just didn't
Which is a
know.
good idea. Yeah.
I just didn't know the differences. So we're looking to set a salary for an entire year, not another 6 months?
Yes.
Okay.
And I'm suggesting a 10.5% increase, or a jump to 112,750 to be exact.
Okay, well, you saw my evaluations. It was a love fest. I was almost embarrassed. But I've spent a lot
There's
of
no
time.
room for improvement.
I know,
How do you
I'm
go
telling
beyond
you.
fives?
But I've spent a lot of time hanging out with town managers. I've been to a lot of meetings. And twice last year, I went to conferences with municipal officials from all over the state, and tons of them, and did a lot of talking about, because of course we were there without most of our town managers, and we did a lot of discussion about what to expect from your town manager, what their town managers did, blah, blah, blah. And when I talked about what ours was doing and hit the ground running there, people were like, how did you do that? They were, I have to tell you, people were, just couldn't believe, and they were writing down things, well, we gotta get ours to do this and what have you. So I think that we're playing catch-up. You know that I said months ago that I thought that we were underpaying the lady, and I want her to stay here, and I think now that we have the right woman for the job, giving Tracy the what is it? It's the starting salary that we would be paying if somebody was just hired tomorrow. I think that that is not unrealistic, not unusual, and I think it's well-deserved. So that's my input.
I agree. I went to all the emo things that
I
you did, and
know.
people did. People were
They
taking
did, right?
notes. They're like, how did you get anybody
Who is
to do
she?
that?
What's her number? It's like, no, I'm not telling.
No, we didn't even give out your name.
Yeah.
No.
So Susan, what was your recommendation
My
again?
recommendation was the starting salary, 125.
So maybe I'll pipe it again, not to, you know, as I said, I'm a huge fan of Tracy's. I think a jump from 102 to 112 is a large jump. As far as us losing Tracy to another municipality, she's been a town manager for 4.5 months. I do not think another municipality is going to come poach a town manager who's been town manager for 4.5 months. And I'm not trying to be cheap, I'm trying to weigh the experience and the job Tracy's doing and the learning curve. Tracy is on a learning curve, and she's exceeded my expectations on that learning curve, as we discussed. And I think a $25,000 raise is just a bit too healthy for my Yankee mind.
Yeah, I think normally that would probably be a good point, but I think we've been underpaying her. So I'm calling it catch-up. Phil?
Yes, okay.
You
Thanks.
again.
I gave Tracy a very good evaluation also, but not all fives, okay? And I think she does have some things to learn going forward, but, like
Right.
Mayor Kaz said, it's been 4 months, so I know she's gonna grow into the job and do a great job. What I'm suggesting is just a compromise then. You're at 112, you're at 125, so we'll go like 117, 118. So that's my recommendation. And therefore, then she can get up to 125 the following year.
I'll go with that.
No. I mean, I get it, but
no
yeah.
problem.
Yeah, I think, bringing her up there and then a whole nother year goes by, that's, be one thing if we were talking about a 6-month evaluation and what have you, but I think, I just honestly have to say the starting salary, if we brought in somebody, and the fact that she's only had 4 months here as town manager doesn't take away from the experience she has and the natural ability that she's brought to the picture.
I'll make the motion.
It might be poison.
You didn't open it yet.
Are we ready for a motion?
Yeah, go ahead.
I move to approve the new salary of $125 for Town Manager Stevens effective January 4th, 2020.
I'll second.
I would say the commissioners are kind of caught in a bad way, because it's like you don't want to be the one commissioner or two commissioners trying to be cheap to Tracy.
Oh, she won't hold it against you.
Well,
Never. She would never hold that against you.
There's a motion and a second. We need to vote.
Oh, we did? No, we didn't.
Yeah, we did,
No.
but they didn't talk.
Sure,
I'm sorry, I must have missed that at the beginning.
we welcome it if you agree with me.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, that's the only reason he's letting you up, Penny.
Well, no, clearly I know Zoanne spoke and that she's part of the public. Penny Kaczynski, 6,000 Old Ocean. But you guys are going back and forth and nickels and dimes. Why not, because you are worried about a full year, and I do agree with you on that, why not give her a 6-month evaluation? Why not give her 115 now and a 6-month evaluation and get her up
Great
to
idea.
125 or more? Maybe she gets up to 135 in 6 months, and then the annual review starts from there. If you're so worried about that, if she's doing the job and the salary is X, I can understand you wanting to take a little bit of time because she didn't have that experience. But to wait a full year
I
at a
totally agree.
lesser
Excellent
amount
point. Excellent solution.
isn't feasible, I don't think. That's just me.
But we have a motion on the table.
We have a motion and we have a second.
And we have a second.
Shanna Shines, 111 Dolphin Bend. Women are consistently underpaid. It's a fact. In fact, in the United States, the average woman makes $9,998 less than a man in the same position. In fact, women have higher qualification requirements to get the same job as a man and then are traditionally paid 19.6% less than the man for the same job. As a resident, as an advocate of women, and as an advocate for Tracy, I would ask you to go to the 125. I think it's unnecessary to hold her accountable for another 6 months. She's doing the job, and that job would pay 125 if we had to go on the street for it. And so I highly support her getting that pay now. She is qualified. She was acting for many months. That counts on her experience. I hire a lot of people. That 4 months in the total job wouldn't hold me from taking her. We've already had turnover in the town manager job. We don't need any more. Please pay her what she deserves to earn. Thank you.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second, correct?
At what?
125.
No one wants to discuss Penny's solution. All right, so all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oh my
anybody
God,
with a
I'm the
nay?
only no. Sorry, that's against you.
You're the accountant, okay, we allow that, you're the accountant.
How'd you bail out on me?
I wanted to do Penny's. Penny's solution was brilliant. By the way, on the contract front, it's still Tracy's an employee and we have control if something goes wrong.
Absolutely,
Yes,
nothing
of course.
changes. Yes.
Very good.
Congratulations.
Okay, item number,
I want everybody to know that I did something right that didn't have anything to do with home rule tonight. Okay? So, all right.
resolution number 2020-03, opposing Senate Bill 1128 and 1011.
Resolution 2020-03, a resolution of the Town Commission of the Town of Ocean Ridge, Florida, strongly encouraging the state legislature to oppose Senate Bill 1128 and House Bill 1011 and any companion Senate and House bills related to the preemption of local laws regarding short-term rentals.
Okay, we talked about home rule a little bit earlier today. The town commission has heard many complaints from residents over the past several years in regards to short-term rentals invading Ocean Ridge and disturbing our residential neighborhoods and character of the town. In an effort to protect our residents, I have developed a resolution for your consideration opposing Senate Bill 1128 and House Bill 1011 and any other companion bills related to short-term rentals. This is kind of a proactive approach. We send it to the legislature before their vote.
Public comment?
Public comment? The thumbs up down there.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'll say it really fast. We'll go in, but I got
Whose idea was that?
You want her to get more money?
You know this is an issue. You know it lowers property values. You know we have to send a notice to Florida. Please send the notice. Thank you.
Our voting on this resolution doesn't guarantee results, but it
But
certainly
it's
lets
doing
us
something.
stand up.
But it helps.
This is a home rule issue.
Commission discussion?
I'll make the motion to approve it. Resolution 2020-03.
I second.
Is that enough info, Brian, for the record?
Yes.
Great. All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Unanimous.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, resolution 2020-04,
Okay, and
opposing Bill 519.
Resolution 2020-04, resolution of the Town Commission of the Town of Ocean Ridge, Florida, is strongly encouraging the state legislature to oppose House Bill 519, which amends the Burt J. Harris Property Rights Act.
okay, now, because of the synthetic turf and the property rights and everything that happened, I'm almost scared to say this, but in an effort to preserve the residential character of the town, don't kill me, I'm sorry, and to maintain the low millage rate that our citizens expect, you like that one, I have developed a resolution for your consideration opposing House Bill 519 relating to amending the Burt J. Harris Act. The bill would offer blanket entitlements that do not consider everyone's property rights and does not consider the size or density of properties or other zoning standards that could lead to unintended consequences. The The bill could have devastating impacts on our small residential neighborhoods and also opens the door for higher taxes to cover litigation costs.
So Tracy, tell me if I'm correct, because this is, of anything going through the legislation right now, this is the scariest for any size
Yes.
town.
Yes, it is.
Basically, what it says in a nutshell, and you can correct me, Brian, if I'm misunderstanding this, is if someone comes to your town and looks for a variance based on a code that they have not decided to follow, so they're looking for a variance, that variance, if you decide as the Board of Adjustments or the commission to go ahead and grant that variance becomes the new, by default, standard or code. So anybody who has a variance has now changed aesthetically everything that you've got going on in a town. So this is terrifying to any town. So I would strongly support this. And it is a thinly veiled, where this came from, it is a thinly veiled attempt to allow short-term rentals, is where it's been coming from.
Where's the lobbying?
That's where the lobbying is coming from, so.
Brian?
I mean, I think, you know, the variance and the settlement or whatever, that's if somebody files a Burt J. Harris Act against us and we decide, okay, we will support a variance or we will do that. If we do that, then we have to apply that across the board to everyone.
And it doesn't take into consideration all the different
Well, no, it doesn't. It doesn't. You know, it takes away a lot of notice. It takes away a lot of other things that you consider when you do a variance. And so therefore, then what that puts the local governments in a position of having to not really settle these things, but to litigate them and to fight them to the nth degree until you win or lose, which costs a lot of money. And chances are that may or may not be covered by insurance as well. So just so you know, so that's where a lot of the issues are coming with, where it's going to be a major impact to local government. It also shortens timeframes in order for us to respond to complaints when we get them, rather than 150 days down to 90 days. It also opens up other things. Before, they could just claim damages based on the devaluation of their property. Let's say on the common one is, okay, you reduce the height that I could build my building to, so I'm having an appraiser come in to say, you devalued my property by so much money. It also adds business damages in there now, which may not be that applicable here, but it just opens up a lot of stuff that's not good for local
So
government.
just to be clear, we'll still get sued if we, with this rule, or this ordinance, if we let somebody have a 35-foot house, we agree to allow somebody to extend beyond what they would. And the next guy says, well, I want that, he doesn't have a variance, he could sue us anyway.
No, he wouldn't even have to do that.
No,
We would,
Right.
right.
If we reject the Burt Harris.
Oh, yes,
Yeah,
yes,
just so we're not bulletproof, in other words, that's all.
No,
No.
this is simply
No.
a resolution.
Yeah.
yeah.
This is a shot over the bow of very direct wishes from a small municipality to
Yep.
the legislature.
So do we have a motion?
Can I comment, please? If you don't mind. Terry Brown, Harbor Drive South. Without using labels, I just wanted to point out that this is what happens when you have almost every level of government controlled by one party that's influenced by lobbyists. This is a developer issue. The developers are looking to raid local treasuries for everything they can get if you don't give them what they want. So this is the strongest point you need to make against this amendment. This is terrible, and it's going to keep happening. They don't even need a vote from anybody in the other party. All of the people have total control, FP&L, developers, sugar growers, and this is a classic example of the developers shoving this down our throats.
Does somebody want to make a motion? Tracy was kind enough to, Betty, yeah?
This is just for clarification, since I've served on the variance committee. We don't give out variances. Can they sue us if we just flat out refuse to let them do what they
Well,
want to do?
no, what this would come into play is during the settlement process, the town may look at it and go, okay, let's say that that staff will support a variance or whatever, and so a variance is granted. I'm not saying that the board would have to grant a variance, but let's say that a variance is granted. So if the variance is granted, then that variance would automatically apply to all the other properties in the town that are situated the same as this one property is.
It seems to me that's the reason we haven't passed a variance in about 10 years.
Okay. I'll set it public. Do we got a motion?
I move to adopt resolution 2020 it's 04 on this one, or is this?
Yes,
04. And direct the town clerk to distribute the resolution to the legislature.
I'll second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, town manager's report.
Yes, the Palm Beach County flood maps are changing, and FEMA will hold a public open house regarding the potential changes to the flood insurance rate map and flood insurance study. Residents will have the opportunities to speak with officials to learn how the new maps may affect them. The open houses will be held at the Mary V. McDonald Wilson Center, located at 1505 North Australian Ave in West Palm Beach, tomorrow from 4 to 7 p.m., and also on Wednesday from 9 to noon. Stop by whichever flood risk open house is more convenient for you. No appointment is necessary. Officials from Ocean Ridge, myself, Wayne, and our town engineer, Lisa Tripepi, will be there if residents need assistance or have questions. The Septic to Sewer Citizens Advisory Committee met recently and heard a presentation regarding grant funding by Ryan Ruske from RMPK Funding, and another presentation regarding vacuum sewer systems by a representative from Flowback. Both presentations were very
Quiet,
informative
please.
and gave us a good
Quiet.
basis for beginning our next phase of the project. Mr. Ruske was invited to speak to the Town Commission in March regarding grant funding, and I believe it fits within his schedule and he'll be able to come. The town is hosting a free shredding event at Town Hall on Saturday, February 8th from 9 to noon. We hope to see you all there. The drainage project at 5455 Spanish River Drive is 95% completed. The contractors are currently working on water intrusion into the secondary catch basins. The town engineer and public works director are currently working with contractors to resolve those issues. We are still in the interview phase of hiring a public works employee, and we appreciate the public's patience as we remain short-staffed in this area. We hope to have someone on board in the next 30 to 45 days so we can begin catching up on public works projects that need to be completed, including signs, Terry. Our trip to Tallahassee this month was a big success. We were able to speak with Representative Caruso and Senator Berman about potential septic to sewer funding and short-term rental legislation, revisiting the idea of a crosswalk near Crown Colony, and also brought up the topic of canal rights. I was able to speak about that issue with Richard Radcliffe with the Palm Beach County League of Cities, and also Todd Bonlaren, the Assistant County Administrator. I hope to speak with potential lobbyists that are currently helping other cities with appropriation requests as we work through our septic to sewer conversion talks. I will follow up with them all in the near future as we progress with the projects. And last but not least, the public beach crossovers at Anna and Edith Streets have been damaged by recent storms and beach erosion. Staff is working with DEP and contractors to develop a plan for mitigation so we can further strengthen the structures for protection from further damage. We are also working with the Department of Environmental Resource Management regarding beach erosion and possible long-term solutions, as more and more beach owners are finding problems with erosion on their property.
The only thing I mentioned to Tracy, just so the Commissioner's aware, I brought this up during, I think it was Storm Sandy. Tracy and Wayne are looking at 2 hinged lower steps that you can simply draw up when you know the storm's coming, so we don't get this swaying of the entire staircase and causing us more money.
We're also looking at strengthening the structures themselves.
Yeah, but
and
strengthening it, you're not going to beat the ocean.
we're looking at both,
Right.
both aspects.
Okay. Anybody got anything else for Tracy? Town Attorney.
No report.
Police Chief.
The December 2019 monthly activity reports are included in your package. I would like to invite everyone to join us on Wednesday, February the 12th at 6 p.m. here for a short presentation on some scams and recent crime trends, and a dessert social that will be hosted by Officer Boyle.
Yay.
For those of you who attended last time, we will open the wall this time to make room for everyone. February 12th, 6 PM. Stop by for a few minutes. We'll do a very short, quick 10-minute presentation in the beginning and talk about some of the recent crime trends. And then hopefully everybody will enjoy dessert. Thanks to everybody who attended the CPR Stop the Bleed presentation. We had 2 of them. The turnout was a little less than what we expected,
Only
but
two people.
No,
there
no, two
were-
events, two
there were
events.
2 events. The folks that did attend were greatly appreciative of the ability for Boynton to come over and provide that training for us. And Officer Boyle did a wonderful job in that presentation also. Don't forget, shred event, February 8th and April the 25th, for those of you who are not in town. Coincides with tax time. Get rid of your old stuff. Don't throw it in the garbage. It will save you from having to call us and report identity theft. That's why we're here. I'll be standing out there like I always am. Swing by, takes just a minute, drop your stuff off, and be on your way. We'll be here from 9 to noon. Questions, comments, ideas, problems, suggestions, solutions?
Wayne?
The monthly report's in front of you, if you have any questions.
I just have one.
Sure.
Code enforcement hearing for December, the parking garage. So what happened there? I'm sure everyone in town's kind of curious.
Sure. Basically.
By the way, the parking garage is the house at the top of Hudson Street.
We had a meeting with the property owners and the contractors, and we all came together to come up with timelines and deliverables, in which they have agreed, and as you can see, they've made a diligent effort at this point to meet those deliverables. Their extension of the permit is contingent upon those deliverables. So,
it's good.
Level of accountabilities have been levied.
Thank you.
Can I just expand upon that just a little bit? The timeline of the project is expected to be the end of this year, however, could go to next February.
Next February 2020?
Yes, 2021. We're hoping to have it done by
That would be
December.
amazing.
They still have a lot of work to do on the home, as you can see, so we're hoping to have it finished by December. And I've asked them to kindly work on the outside of the building first.
Good idea.
Where are we with the tear down?
They're being fined.
Yeah, still being fined?
Yes, fines.
Are we getting any closer to a mandatory date on that? Other than, I guess we're gonna have to pay for it.
Well, we're looking at the legal components as it currently stands, and they received their second 30-day notice as part of the unsafe structure due process that's afforded to them.
We're looking at 2 avenues right now, Don. We're looking at, looking into the liens on the property and the foreclosure process, and also looking at unsafe structure. So we have kind of 2 options that we're looking at.
Okay, commission discussion, there is none, so the meeting.
No, I already asked for Hal to walk me out. Sorry.